Hello. Hello, everybody. It is 6 o'clock on the dot, which is what I like to do. One day I'll get a waiting screen. I keep forgetting to do that. But anyway, welcome. Welcome to my chaotic stream setup. I'm so happy to have you here. If this is your first time here, I am Mylan Aikman. I am a psychology VTuber. Today we are streaming for the sorry. Today we are streaming for LA Fire Relief. As you may be aware, Los Angeles. Hey, Astral, and hey, Petboo. I'm sorry, Astral Atropos. I should know how to pronounce your name by now. I see you a lot, but welcome. But yeah, today we are streaming for LA Fire Relief. If you are unaware, which I would be surprised if you're unaware, but there are. Bye, hello, welcome. There are a bunch of giant wildfires that have been going on in LA, and they're finally at least getting a little bit of containment, but this has been pretty devastating. Like, fires have been getting worse increasingly in California over the years, and this is, I haven't checked if it's one of the worst ones. It's definitely one of the worst ones in California history. A lot of people have been affected. A lot of places that I have burned down. So we've got a whole bunch of wonderful VTubers here. This was organized by Syzygy Altair, or Z, as I like to call her, because I'm insecure in my ability to pronounce Syzygy. She organized this on really short notice. She came up with the idea like last week after Fi did his big charity stream, shortly before Fi came up with his big charity stream, and somehow she has managed to look at all of these people who are going to be streaming over the course of like today, tomorrow, and Sunday to raise money for this. It's actually kind of ridiculous. There's a full schedule on the left there, you can see as well. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. For my stream in particular, which of course is starting now, here we go, I have several incentives. So there's like the overall donation total, which is being tracked by the bar at the top of the page. It looks like, what are we at actually? I think we're at, I can't see very well. That's on me. But I think that looks like a pretty impressive number. We're like almost halfway, I think, to Z's 156. Dang, it's gone up since I last looked at it. Thank you for checking for me. Yeah, isn't that awesome? So that's the overall fundraiser. Fi was the first person to stream, and I believe, so he streamed earlier today. I think I'm the second person streaming. Yeah. So I also have my own Amplify link to this. It is in the description of this video, and then also, oh no, my QR code got a little, well, it's cut off, but I have a QR code in the lower left-hand corner of the screen and a link in the chat, or not in the chat, in the description of the stream. Both of those are Amplify links, which will allow me to keep track of exactly how many people for my stream have donated, which is where these incentives go in. So I'm not nearly as big of a content creator as some of the other people participating in this, but I'm very happy to be here. So I have my own more modest milestones here. If y'all, as a chat, if we raise $10, I will draw an OC or VTuber that is voted on by the chat. I am happy to do that. I'm very excited about that. $15, I will let you pick the next topic for the paper that I read. And maybe even the paper if you want to. I've got to be careful about copyright, so I need to make sure that the paper is publicly available and all that and safe to stream. But I'm happy to read a paper for all y'all on whatever topic you want. $20, I will do some data. I love doing data analysis. It's been a while since I've done a data analysis stream. So if we hit $20 of our particular contributions to this cause from this particular stream, I will find a publicly available data set, or you can pick the data set, and I will go through and I'll do a bunch of exploratory analyses for it on stream. And of course, you are welcome to suggest analyses as we go. $25, I will make a psychology short video on any anime that you want, as long as that, I do have some stipulations in the description, mainly the main stipulation, the only stipulation for which anime it would be is that if I have not seen it before, it has to be 2 cours or less, so like a maximum of 26 episodes or so, just so I can do this in a timely manner. But yeah, I've also seen a lot of anime. I think I've seen over 500 anime. So, like, There's a good chance I've seen the one that you would suggest, but it's not a guarantee. If I haven't seen it, 2 cours would be the maximum, but I'll do a little short thing on a scene or a character from that show. $50 if we get that far. I will write you a paper. I will do a full archival study if that means analyzing pre-existing data sets, or if that means going through and getting my own data sets, scraping from social media sites, going through and individually like copying YouTube comments into a giant data set that I can analyze. I will get a hypothesis. You can help me with the hypothesis if you want. We will gather data. We will test that hypothesis, and I will do a full APA style write-up with abstract, introduction, methods, results, discussion section, and reference section. I'll do the full lit review. I'll do the whole thing on whatever topic you want if we hit 150 for our particular little corner of this. Or if we hit, did I say 50? Yeah. And then $100 if we hit $100. I'm actually kind of scared of this, depending on, which is why I put it for like twice as high as the next possible reward. If we hit $100 from this particular stream, I will do a stream explaining whichever statistical test that you want. And I'm terrified of that happening, because there's a non-zero chance somebody will ask me for a Bayesian test, and then I will have to go and teach myself Bayesian statistics before I can even bother to try and before I can even start figuring out a single particular test. But I will do it. I am willing to put my brain on the line and my sanity on the line for this cause. If we make it that far. Woohoo! All right. So yeah, let's get to the main body of the stream now. I'm gonna hide that incentive thing. Just so hopefully nobody takes me. Well, no, I do wanna hit my ultimate goal. If only because that means that we've raised a lot of money for a very good cause, but also I'm really scared. I'm really scared. I love statistics, but you have the potential to destroy my life with that one. It's okay. Even if I can't figure it out, I know some very good statisticians who can help me figure it out. If it's like a t-test, though, I'm good. I will explain a t-test to you. Well, I can explain a t-test to you from memory. But, yeah, if it's something like a hierarchical logistic model or some sort of Bayesian or non-parametric test, then I will suffer. But it will be worth it. Okay. Right. Okay. So now let's get into what we're doing today. I am going to... Whoa! Oh my god! That was loud! I was not expecting that. Oh my goodness, that scared the heck out of me! Oh, but we just got a donation! That's so exciting! I need to find a way so I can see this right, fine, now I understand what you were talking about. Oh my god, that was the worst jump scare. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm definitely peeking the mic. Oh god, I need to adjust that. Oh. My heart is beating at 1,000,000 miles an hour. This is embarrassing. Oh no! Oh, thank you, Bobo. Thank you very much. Oh man. Okay. Alright. No volume. Oh. More volume. Is that better volume? I'm sorry. I got really scared. And I was being too loud. Okay, I hope that's okay. Hopefully we're okay and I'm not gonna like destroy your eardrums. Oh my goodness. Okay. Alright, okay. So I'll save going through figuring out the milestones at the end of the stream, just so we can get them through them all at once. But oh yeah, no, you wouldn't. Yeah, I don't have desktop audio, so you wouldn't have heard it. But boy, did I hear it! I sure heard it, and I wish I did. Well, no, I'm happy for what it represents. I'm very happy for what it represents. That's a wonderful thing. Bad for my heart, though. Oh my gosh. Maybe I should enable desktop audio. Maybe I should. That way you can suffer with me. I will enable desktop audio, but I'll keep it quieter. You shouldn't have given me this knowledge. No! Please be kind. Okay, you now have desktop audio, so now you can suffer with me, but I've kept it quieter for you than it is for me. This is my concession to be nice to all of you. Please don't hurt me. Maybe I could literally just turn down my own volume. Why aren't I turning down my own volume? That would be a very smart thing to do, but I've never claimed to be smart. I've never claimed to be smart. Okay, all right. Okay, so the thing that we are doing today, the whole purpose of this stream, is I thought it would be a nice idea to read a paper. This is a paper from Plus One, which is an open access journal. There is a link and the full APA citation for this paper down in the description if you want to read along. Oh yeah, the donation of multiple. No, please be nice. Resilience. Yeah. I'm apparently I don't have very good resilience for loud noises. The joke is that I've known that for a very long time. Sudden loud noises are not my thing, which is... I love horror, but I hate jump scares. This is my curse. This is my curse, and I will never be free. Okay. Drink more caffeinated beverage. Surely this can't possibly go wrong. Okay. Certain words in context of analyzing the psyche. Yeah, resilience is mostly, in terms of psychology, I should know more about this, and we'll learn about it as we read the paper, but it's mostly like the ability to bounce back after something happens. And that's specifically the sort of operationalization that this paper's using, like your ability to emotionally bounce back. Yeah, of course. Thank you, thank you. I believe in you. I also always watch streams in the background, so I totally get it. Putter to your heart's content. Right. Yeah, but yeah, in terms of psychology, usually resilience is your ability to emotionally rebound after a stressful circumstance. Unfortunately, I couldn't find one about wildfires specifically, but I did find one about natural disasters. So this one is by Batina, Tentich, and Bolin. This is from 2022, so it's pretty recent. Yeah, it's not like persistence, but more recovery. Exactly. It's not like you're powering through it necessarily. You still took an emotional hit. It's your ability to recover from that emotional hit after time passes. Your ability to not necessarily keep going, but to recover. All right. So, yeah, this one is actually a really cool paper. I am really a huge fan of like more modern methods and more modern types of data. And this is using social media posts in the wake of a variety of hurricanes. And this is exactly the kind of stuff I love. I love analyzing social media posts, so I'm really excited to read this paper. When I found it, I was super pumped. But let's not stall any longer. Let's not stall, because if I take too long during this stream, I will be my cat will be very angry at me, and we don't want to disappoint him. Right, okay. Here we go. We have our abstract. Natural disasters have devastating, long-lasting effects on a community's emotional well-being. Unsurprising. I mean, they kind of uproot your life at the end of the day. That's what's so scary about them. And also, they just reduce how safe you feel, right? These effects may be distributed unequally, affecting some communities more profoundly and possibly over longer time periods than others. That's true. Some communities will get harder hit by the disaster than others. Maybe this is because the landscape around them, for example, in hurricanes, maybe if you are lower down to the ground, you're more at sea level, you're going to have a lot more flooding. Or if you're directly in the path of the hurricane, you're going to get hit a heck of a lot harder, of course, if you're on the periphery. The same is true for wildfires. Some places, it's just a drop in air quality. Other places, your house is gone. Or some places, you might get I've lived near wildfires before, so I'm kind of familiar with what it's like being in the vicinity. And yeah, depending on where you live, you might have very, very different outcomes based on that. And of course, there's also the matter of disaster relief. Some communities are more likely to get funding for disaster relief than others. Sometimes for political reasons, sometimes for other reasons. It's very unfortunate. So here they're looking at 4 major US hurricanes. So we have multiple cases here. This is not a case study. They are doing this over 4 events: Irma, Harvey, Florence, and Dorian. So this is a specific area of the US. They have a map here of where each of these are. This is largely in the south, largely in the southeast of the United States that they're looking. We show that a community's emotional response to a hurricane event can be measured from the context of social media that its population has measured before, during, and after the hurricane. So what they did, and I admit I've looked a little into spoilers on this, they went to people's Twitter accounts specifically. So this is back when researchers could still access the Twitter API. Oh yeah, losing your material means of sustaining life and how much you're able to adapt to the circumstances to secure a replacement if possible. Yeah, that's one of the really scary things, I think, I mean, I'm a little biased. I've lived in areas with wildfires, but I've never lived in an area with hurricanes. So I've thought more about wildfires, I guess you could say, in that respect. But with wildfires, like, if a wildfire goes through your home, it's gone. Yes, the US is not very kind to those without a home. I don't want to say fortunately with LA, because the weather in LA is part of the reason that this has become such a problem. It's very dry, but it's also very warm. This is a consistent thing that California has. There's a lot of people who go to California because it's a warmer environment where, like, it's very expensive. This is true, but if you don't have a home to live in, it's less, like, you're going to be exposed to the elements, typically speaking, less in California than in other places. So their resources for helping people without homes in California are already really heavily stretched. And also, of course, like, this fire insurance thing, a lot of these people have lost their homes and insurance companies don't want to cover them. And certain insurance companies straight up will not cover homes in California. I know this because I have family that lives there and they lost their house insurance a few years back. So this has been an ongoing problem. As wildfire season gets worse in California, insurance companies are just straight up refusing to give fire insurance to places. And now all these people who do have fire insurance, the insurance may not honor those contracts because that's a lot. That's a lot all at once. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. If it's warm enough for fires, it's not as imminent a risk of exposure. Yeah, that's pretty much the whole California deal right here. But yeah, you're losing a lot of stuff. You're losing a lot of documentation too. Like, if you don't manage to pick up, say, government documents in time, that's a problem. Um, oh man, it's honestly pretty devastating. I think if there's one thing that, at least in California, this is to some extent expected. This is not the first major fire in that area of the state. This is a known risk, but I can't think of a fire that's ever gone this close into LA. So that's really what makes this scary, but at least, like, there's a higher likelihood that there is some preparedness in terms of, like, having go bags, that you would take along with you if you have a disaster, or some sort of plan for evacuation. But still, the evacuation was a mess. It's a huge area. God. Sorry. This hits a little close to home for me. Not super close to home, but close enough that it's a little uneasy. So thankful you live in the UK. We are, like, the least susceptible to natural disasters in the world. Dealing with nature is just wiping your life away is terrifying. Hard agree. When you're moving somewhere or deciding where you want to live, like, let's say you're moving out of your parents' place for the first time and you might move to a different state. I've always kind of, maybe joked isn't the right word for it, but when you decide to move to a different state or decide you want to move to a different region, you're kind of choosing which natural disasters you're going to have to worry about. Oh yeah, sea levels. So close to 200. Yes, it's so exciting. Ah, Z's gonna be in trouble. Or I wonder if we can get Z on a satellite. That's like, we have to get to, like, what, 3,000 to get Z on a satellite? Either way, I'm very excited about the possibility, and I hope that we can do it. I think Z deserves to go to space. Oh, I wonder if my Amplify link is working. Can I refresh this just to check? There's $25! Oh, we've raised $25, everyone! Z promised a PDE course at 0800 to 6K for launching. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, okay. Oh, what is 20? I just want to see now. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm going to draw something for all of you. We're going to read a paper. I get to do an analysis on stream, and we're going to do a psychology short video on an anime of your choice. I'm very excited. Oh, I'm hoping for it too. I'm hoping for it. I need to check my budget for the month to see if I can force it to happen. Oh, that would be fun. But welcome, welcome. Man, we haven't made it very far at all, have we? So for each hurricane making landfall in the US, we observe a significant decrease in sentiment. So sentiment is... So I actually have done a lot of analyses similar to this. Sentiment analysis is a specific type of text analysis that tries to get at the emotions that people are expressing through text. So they'll look at like words that people are using, like I feel gross, or I feel happy, or this is great, or this is the worst. And there's various ways you can do sentiment analysis. You can get down to the exact emotions that they're expressing, like based on the words used in this text, they appear to be expressing happiness or anger or something like that. Oh, you were? That's awesome! Sorry. And there's also a more general sentiment analysis, which is, it's by the phrase significant decrease in sentiment. There's sort of a general sentiment analysis that doesn't focus on individual emotions, but it more focuses on sort of a spectrum of positive emotions to negative emotions. So when they're saying a significant decrease in sentiment, they're saying that people got into worse moods immediately before and during the hurricane. And this makes sense because hurricanes are a bit more predictable than wildfires, especially this is not the time of year that California would usually get wildfires. Usually that's in like spring, summer, fall kind of area. So this is it's a surprise that there's a fire this big at this time of year. But those are less predictable because anything can start a wildfire. It can be a lightning strike. It can be, I think one of the big ones recently was a PG&E, what are they called? A power line sparking. It can be, you know, people not putting out a campfire correctly, somebody tossing a lit cigarette out of the car window into the grass at the side of the highway. Did they capture data on how much the quality of life of the involved people changed in terms of available facilities? That's a great question. I need to hurry up and read so we can find out, right? I need to stop being so slow about this. Let's find out. Okay. So they were in a worse mood immediately before the hurricane and then during the hurricane, which of course, that's a horribly stressful event. And after the hurricane, no, that's when they measured it. And then they had a rapid return to pre-hurricane baseline, often within 1 to 2 weeks. So their emotions, at least the ones that they were expressing on social media, so of course this isn't perfect. We can't tell if these are their actual emotions or the emotions that they're trying to project out into the world. But it seems like they bounced back fairly quickly in terms of how they were talking, which is surprising. However, some communities that exhibit markedly different rates of decline and return to previous equilibrium levels. So some communities were expressing a lot more or less negative sentiment than others, and for some it took a lot longer or shorter for them to bounce back to how they were before the hurricane. The points toward the possibility of measuring the emotional resilience of communities from the dynamic of their emotional response. So I think this is more of a proof of concept than anything else, which honestly isn't surprising to me that you can do this. Like I've done stuff like this before, different types of incidents than what they're doing here, but I've looked at this kind of thing before, and it's a really cool thing you could do with social media. Unfortunately, you can't do it really these days with Twitter, but I hear Blue Sky has opened up an API and they let you use the fire hose, is what I've heard. For those of you unfamiliar with social media scraping and APIs, what Twitter used to do was their free API that they allowed researchers to use was, it's not a fire hose. They give you a part of it. I'm sorry, Marlon. Oh my God. Double-blind experiment. You maybe or maybe not destroy someone. I don't think we could get the IRB to approve that. The ethics board might not be very happy if we tried to do that. Oh no, I don't think they even tell us not to do that in ethics training because it's just kind of assumed that we won't do that. That, like, that's not a thing that we should do. Okay. I mean, yeah, the old Twitter API, and presumably the one that they were using here, doesn't give you everything. What you do is you have to do this live too. So they, well, it's complicated the way that it would work, but for the most part, when you're initially collecting data, you have to do it live. So you have to get on there in Minecraft, exactly, in Minecraft. Yes, yes. Um, yeah, you would enter keywords that you were interested in looking for, or actually, you could also filter tweets by geographic area, but only about, I'd say, like less than 1% of tweets that you would get through Twitter's API actually had geocoded data, so you were only getting a very small amount of the total tweets coming out of that area, because those were the only ones you could actually pinpoint the area of. And also, Twitter's free research API only allows you to get 10% of the total tweets that are being sent at any one time. So these people were probably collecting, I'm assuming, with the free research API. So they would go and they would look for tweets from that area, which is probably less than 1% of tweets that are actually actively being sent out in that area. And then more than that, because they're using the free version of the API that isn't a fire hose, fire hose is literally every single tweet. That's why it's called a fire hose, because it's overwhelming. It's like drinking from a fire hose, that metaphor. So they're probably only getting a very, very small selection of the tweets from this area during this time period. But because, Twitter at that time was such a big social media site with so many users, you could still get a pretty decent amount of data that way. Okay, anyway. Anyway, sorry to info dump on you like that, but hey, I'm adding something, right? I'm teaching you something you might not have known. Okay. Yeah, hurricanes are devastating, unsurprising. The US alone had over 30 hurricanes in the past 20 years. Okay, that could be worse, I guess. It's still not great. Whose aggravated effects included destroying infrastructure, so this is kind of what Marlin was alluding to. These cause a lot of destruction that will persist long past the actual disaster. And loss of life are difficult to estimate. This is all the more true for hurricanes' social and psychological effects on well-being. And I've actually looked at other papers on psychological responses to natural disasters, and it's pretty rough. I have found other papers suggesting there's one specifically about the Camp Fire, which was another major fire in Southern California a few years back that looked at the mental health effects of the Camp Fire. And I think a year later they looked at it, and they saw increases in PTSD and depression 1 year after the Camp Fire, but not anxiety, oddly enough. I always wondered if there's no way to build more resilient homes in hurricane-prone areas, but that's unrelated. I wonder too. That does seem like something you could at least take some precautions for. I mean, like, California also has a building code that makes sure that the houses there are more durable and will stand up better to earthquakes. And I'm not sure if that sort of area would work. Like, if you could create a building code that makes a house significantly more hurricane safe in the same way. Oh, well, Tim, do you know about that? The energy in a hurricane is astronomically high. Unsurprising. Sloped walls instead of upright ones, maybe. Yeah, maybe. That way you're at least deflecting some of the... I'm not a physicist. I've never taken a physics class. Yeah, and like, at the end of the day, building a house, you're never going to make a house that's like immune to a natural disaster. I don't think that's possible, but you can at least make a house that maybe gets a little less damaged by it, and even a little bit means a lot, I think, in this context. Whew. Slope will help the houses explode with the pressure difference. Oh, yeah. Did I hear about possibly opening your windows during that? Or I don't know. Don't listen. I can give wildfire advice to an extent, but I cannot say anything about hurricanes. I've never lived anywhere in an area. Yeah, don't do that. Okay. In the case of Japan, there's homes that have more resilience because of the constant typhoons and earthquakes. That makes sense. I remember reading somebody say that wildfires output similar energy to atomic bombs. That would not surprise me. Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna give natural disaster advice. I can give some advice about wildfires, and I can give some advice about tornadoes. I don't know anything about hurricanes. Don't ask me about hurricanes. Don't trust anything I say related to hurricanes. I'm gonna drink my Dr. Pepper. Not sponsored. Okay. Anyway. Okay. So yeah, that makes sense. A lot of the research so far has been focused on logistics of physical damage. So they focused on like how to help communities rebuild physically speaking, like preparing and protecting infrastructure. So yeah, it looks like there are some preparative measures like trying to protect things, putting up sandbags to prevent flooding. For example, after Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans lost. Yeah, but the social and psychological consequences could be equally relevant. Absolutely. These natural disasters are deeply. Please don't explode Yellowstone. Okay, okay. I'm focusing. I'm focusing. I'm focusing. I'm focusing. Uh, oh, wow. Yeah, I guess. I. No, no, it's not your fault. I think it's very funny. This is a me problem. I keep getting distracted by chat. Y'all are just too funny and entertaining for your own good. Or maybe for my good, really. That's the problem. I could just close the chat window, but I guess I have no self-control in that regard. Okay, okay, okay. Much of the attention... Right. Yes. New Orleans... Yeah, Hurricane Katrina hit. Maybe metal shutters on the windows or something. Metal shutters on the chat windows could work. That could work. Anyway. So yeah, New Orleans was, at the end of the day, interacting with chat is the difference between a scripted video and a live stream. It's true. This is the price that we pay for this being a live stream and not a scripted video. Ah. On the benefit, though, it doesn't include me procrastinating on editing it for a billion years like I do with my scripted videos. So that's nice. Right, okay. Yeah, New Orleans was hit incredibly hard by Hurricane Katrina way back when. I don't remember it too well, but I have been to New Orleans since then, and like the culture has changed. It's been wild, and to some extent, of course, that was because of the damage, but people just didn't feel safe living there anymore. And frankly, like, part of the reason that I'm familiar with California, of course, is because, well, I have lived in areas with wildfires before. Let's put it that way. I have lived in multiple parts of the US that have wildfires, and it's scary being near one. I don't want to live in a place like that again. I'm intentionally, I never want to move to a place that might have wildfires again because I've lived near one and it's scary. So it makes sense that there would be this cultural change and this exodus after a natural disaster, because even if your living space is not personally affected, it's a really terrifying thing. There's nothing quite like going to bed, looking out the window, watching literal flames out your window, and keeping your phone nearby, not on silent, just to make sure you hear the evacuation orders. Hi, Z! Stream's going great. We've earned $25, at least last when I checked. So that's really exciting. That means I've got a lot of things to get up to. By the way, I highly suggest that you prepare yourself when you start streaming, because Fi was right. Those donation notifications are scary as hell. They are terrifying. Oh, I'm so excited about the paper too. I need to lock in and actually read it. That's my problem. Oh man, wait, what? Yeah, they're really loud. Yeah. Z, you're gonna get jump scared. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. It's just the sudden loud ding, and it's like, oh, you can set the sounds? You can set the sounds? That's awesome. I should have checked that. Oh, this is Z's fault. I see. Thank you for... Oh my god. Yeah, let's not jump scare Z while soldering. This is why we need to warn you in advance so that you don't burn your hand off or something. Oh my gosh. Yeah, please don't do that. Oh my gosh. I need to speed up. We're half an hour in and we're like 2 paragraphs into the introduction. Right, okay. Da, 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 da. Mental and psychological effects of natural disasters may play an important role in the recovery of community action. Of course, community recovery. I guess there is a branch of psychology called community psychology that is sort of, it's kind of like it's more applied. It's more about like, most psychology is mostly about just like studying problems and figuring out what's going on, and community psychology is like, what if we actually did something about it? And it's more on the community level. But the type of psychology I do, social psychology, despite its name, is often fairly much on, like, a lot on the individual level about what an individual does. But it makes sense that individual trauma, especially from a natural disaster like this, would be connected to community distress and trauma. Yeah. So they're measuring collective emotional response and subsequent recovery of geographically defined communities from large-scale Twitter data. I'm so mad about Twitter's API. I want it back. I had just found out how to filter tweets by geographic. No, that's a lie. I'd figured that out a long time ago. I figured out how to graph tweets by geographic location, and I missed that. Yeah, so before, during, and after the hurricane. We do so from the perspective that resilience is a characteristic of systems that can resist external shocks, either by returning to the previous equilibrium or developing an adaptive response to the external driver. So this was that definition of resilience we were looking for earlier. It's interesting saying resist external shocks, because it doesn't seem like they're like just not being shocked. It seems like they're just recovering from the shock or coming up with coping mechanisms for the shock. Sentiment analysis seems somewhat in the domain of yes, it is natural language processing. Sentiment analysis is a type of NLP. It's a pretty basic well, I guess it depends on how you're doing the sentiment analysis. Like, you could just do a bag of words sentiment analysis. You could do a Luke. So Luke is one of the most common ways that psychologists do sentiment analysis. It's basically a dictionary analysis. It just counts words and then looks at those words in proportion of total words. But you could do more complicated things. But yeah, this is going to be using NLP. This is going to be using some form of natural language processing to analyze the data. And I'm very excited to see what they do, because I've done natural language processing. It's been a while. But I'm very excited to see what they're up to, because I think it's so cool. Okay. Makes me wonder if Facebook added for reactions has any use for psychology now. Yeah, actually, there have been a lot of psychology studies on Facebook. Not so much recently, because Facebook has gotten way more protective of its data, especially after the Cambridge Analytical stuff. But I have seen papers looking at emoji use, reaction use, and things like that on Facebook. Just looking at, a lot of them were on emotional contagion, and Facebook actually did internal studies. There's a lot of controversy about that, because they had people participating in these studies without knowing it. But what they would do is they would actually manipulate your social timeline to see more positive or more negative posts, and saw how that influenced the sentiment you were expressing in your own posts. And yeah, they got in trouble of that, because they were basically doing experiments on people without getting their consent, and it was a whole thing. But yeah, there have been studies on that kind of thing, and some of them were ethical. Some of them were ethical and done with consent. Others were not. Oh boy. Anyway. Yeah. Yeah, isn't it interesting? There's some really cool... There was this incredible, huge Facebook study when they were still allowing people to use data. I forget the name of it, but it was a really big deal. I think it was done back around 2013, 2014. And they found out that based on, as long as you were a heavier user of Facebook, or you used a lot and you liked a lot of pages, they could use the pages you liked to get a very accurate picture of your personality and things like that. It was kind of spooky. I've heard of like modeling sentences in a latent space and language modeling sense to try and get an idea of their meaning. I'm not super... Yeah, I've done that before. I've used something called support vector machine analysis, which is, it's kind of like, it is a basic type of machine learning. And I've used machine learning for this kind of stuff too. But yeah, essentially what they do is there's this latent space, and they look at how related two words are. So these two words often appear together. These two words are almost never anywhere near each other. And then, yeah. I think that Facebook app predicting your political lean, was one of the outcomes of that study, because they were able to predict your political leaning by that kind of thing, both by the things that you had liked and by the posts you were interacting with, and the things that your friends had liked and the things they were interacting with. Because it's very rare that we are friends with people with different political views who are not in our immediate family on social media, you know? So people can figure out a lot about you. Someday I should talk more about that. Yeah, it's linguistic analysis is really cool. I've used latent semantic analysis, which is like the most basic form of like getting things into latent vector space. It's basically latent semantic analysis and support vector machine analysis are basically running correlations with text. Like if I want to really simplify it, it's correlating text. And that way, you're not just looking at individual words. You can say, oh, these words often appear together, and when these two words appear together, it seems to mean something different than these two words appearing together. It's a really cool way of getting context. So, like, rather than saying, oh, this person said angry in their post, that must mean they're angry. Latent semantic analysis and support vector machines should be able to, because they use that latent space, should be able to pick up on if that post not only said angry, it said not angry. Like they should be able to pick up on more context around the words than just like counting the number of angry words on its own, because they're using this latent space that allows the model to learn more about the context the words are in. I don't know if that made any sense. Facebook, among other companies, track user searches, either that or they share data between each other. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me all that much, unfortunately. I think that mostly happens within the same sort of umbrella company, you know, like Facebook and Instagram. They both belong to Meta. And yeah. Yeah, in terms of transformer, it's a really useful technology. It's used for a lot of different stuff. It's super cool. Oh, I can't wait until we get to like the method section to see exactly what they were doing. Like, oh, what type of weighting did they use? There's this thing called TF-IDF. Weighting for words. So like a lot of semantic analysis. Yeah, tuples of every permutation of words in a sentence. Yeah. So rather, what are they? It's been a while since I thought about this. But yeah, in terms of assigning like how important each word is, TF-IDF is a way to do that. It gives more weight and more importance to rarer words. So it's basically placing no meaning in words like a and the and as and is. And it's paying more attention to words like, yeah, like lion or hurricane or something like that. We are so distracted. I gotta zone back in. We gotta get to the method section and then I can talk about this and it won't count as a distraction. Oh my gosh. Right. Okay. We're doing it. We're focused. We're in our zone. In this work, we characterize the emotional resilience of a community as its time to recovery. So this is their operational definition. This is specifically how they are conceptualizing of and how they are going to be, well, I guess this isn't quite their operational. This is the specific aspect of their resilience that they're interested in. How fast does the community as a whole recover as opposed to individuals within the community? They're looking at the community on average. So, namely, its ability to resist negative effects of a natural disaster and return to baseline sentiment afterwards. They're just talking about emotional recovery. This isn't about physical recovery, so recovery from any injuries they might have sustained. This isn't about financial recovery or like finding a new place to live or anything. This is solely about emotional recovery, because that's really, I guess they probably could talk to the other stuff because they have social media posts, but sentiment analysis would struggle a bit more with those things. Sentiment analysis, well, text analysis, the most common type of text analysis that I've noticed when you're, at least in psychology, is sentiment analysis. So they're kind of like, this is what we have developed the most in psych in terms of how we use it. By measuring the dynamics of changing community sentiment before, during, and after the disaster, we attempt to model the characteristics of its emotional resistance, which is just a fancy way of saying we're seeing how emotions change over time before, during, and after the disaster within these communities that are affected by it. And I do hope that, like Marlon was saying earlier, I really hope that they measure how much of an like physical impact there was on this community space as well as a covariate. That would be really nice, or like as a moderator or something like that. because they should be able to do that. The way that they're collecting these geocoded tweets, I'm assuming they're going to analyze this in R, and there's ways to pinpoint exact communities in R and sort them, and you could look at a zip code, and then you could probably go to government databases and find out how much destruction or property loss there was in that zip code, and then correlate that with the sentiment that's being expressed by posts from that zip code. Anyway. Stop speculating. Let's find out what they actually did instead of trying to guess what they did. We're gonna be strong. We're gonna be 1.53 billion geolocated tweets. I've always struggled to get how did they get that many geolocated tweets? They must have used the paid version of the API because, oh my gosh. Oh yeah. Yeah, but they've used this before in non-disaster. This is basically, they're saying this is a validated way of guessing how a community feels. People have done this on a larger community level, just in general, without any special circumstances, and they found out that the sentiment expressed on social media from zip codes or certain area or counties, sorry, it correlates with self-reported mental well-being in those areas. So this is a valid way of measuring it. They're trying to justify why they think using social media posts is an okay way of measuring community emotion. Fan et al. Used Twitter timelines from 74,487 users and analyzed. How did they identify the users, I wonder? Because you can't really just collect. You usually have to, based on my experience with the Twitter API, you would have to collect tweets before you identified users, and then you'd have to identify users from the tweets you collected, unless you somehow. It's much harder to collect tweets from a large set of specific users than it is to just collect a large set of tweets on a certain topic. So it's easier to collect the tweets first, identify users from that set of tweets, and then collect tweets from the users you've identified. Anyway, this is no longer relevant because Twitter API is no longer open access or affordable. I'm still mad about it. Okay. Analyze tweets before and after an explicit report of a positive or negative emotion, showing that reports of a positive emotion were preceded by a sharp increase in sentiment, following by a shallow drop to normal levels, while reports of negative emotion showed the opposite pattern. So, this study, Fan et al., found that just generally on an average day when people were posting tweets on Twitter, and they were in a good mood, they'd have sort of tweets like foreshadowing that they were in a good mood, not directly saying it, but just kind of implying they were in a good mood. Then they'd have one tweet going like, hell yeah, I'm super happy. So I'm like imagining like, maybe I just got into a PhD program and I'm like, oh my God, guys, hey, guess what? Guess what, guys? Something just happened. I'm really excited, everyone. I got into grad school, this is the best day ever. And then it just like goes back to your regularly scheduled tweets. But for negative emotion, it sounds like you start out with, I'm in a really bad mood, and then you elaborate. So that's interesting that they have the opposite patterns. Anyway, okay, sorry, I should start reading these before this so I don't just like have these moments where I just sit staring into space processing the implications of the thing I've just read. Our work builds on previous research in... Isn't it kind of funny? There's a lot of interesting stuff about how the emotion expressed in posts travels along, feeling bad, don't ask me about it, I'm just gonna monologue, as opposed to feeling good is like, hey, guess what? You would say there's more tweets with negative, no, not necessarily. This doesn't seem to be implying that. It seemed to implying that positive emotions, you sort of ramp up to them, whereas negative emotions, you kind of ramp down to them. There's a lot of really interesting research, though, on expressing emotions on social media, and it does seem to vary depending on the culture that you're in. I think in in Western cultures, people tend, if I remember the research right, in Western cultures, people tend to post more positive information on their own accounts, but share more negative information. And then in Eastern cultures, people tend to post more negative information, but are more likely to share positive information. And when you think of it, when you think about that, this seems to be kind of reflected in terms of the type of stories that news in the East and West tends to cover on average as well. It's a really interesting pattern. But that can be another stream some other time. For now, let's focus on resilience after a natural disaster. Yes. this is me getting distracted. I just think it's a really cool topic. I love like emotional contagion research, anything to do with social media. I'm a huge nerd about that type of research. I'm a huge nerd about a lot of things, but you know. Does that have to do with introvertedness versus extrovertedness? Not necessarily, no. And introvertedness versus extrovertedness is a very interesting thing because how introverted or extroverted you are online may or may not be super correlated with how extroverted you are in person. I'm not super familiar with that because that's leaning into the realm of personality psychology, and I'm not a personality psychologist. But yeah, that's an interesting question, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the answer. But it might. It might also just have to do with cultural norms. It's hard to say. There's a lot of like fuzziness. All right, much work has been done surrounding the. Oh wait, we're here. Performed sentiment analysis of tweets from 2008, found changes in sentiment correlated with nature. I've wanted in mode of social emotional shutdown. Yeah, we'll have to find out if they account for that. Now this is really funny. They found that changes in sentiment occur with major and notable events that year, and like I wanted to do this when I was in grad school. I wanted to download my entire tweet archive and see how the sentiment in my tweets changed over the course of the semester, and honestly, I might still do that. I think that's a very funny thing to do. Like, were my tweets more negative during midterms? Were they more positive during break? Oh, where like you get up at, yeah, it could be that there is some level of shutdown in there. And also, like, if you're actively fleeing from the disaster, you're probably not posting on social media quite as much as you might be when you're waiting for the disaster to hit or when you're like after the disaster has hit. This is not an official scientific experiment, but I did an MBTI test on stream and got a personal. MBTI is I wouldn't even say it's been discarded. It was never really based. I've heard it referred to as astrology for business students, and or business majors, and I would, yeah, the MBTI is not really based on much empirical data. Yeah, yeah, astrology for business majors, exactly. It's very, very fun to play with, but it doesn't have much empirical support, and it's not a reliable measure, meaning that a lot of people, when you take it, will get different responses each time. Yeah. Congratulations, Z. You're now an astrologer for business majors specifically. I'm so proud of you. I'm so sorry. You know, that was a quick 180. I feel like I've done my duty. All right, we can end the stream. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We're not going to end the stream. We still have a lot to go. This is how we make the money, by traumatizing Z. Oh yeah, Z, I will rant to you about the MBTI sometime. I am delighted to dunk on the MBTI for you sometime and tell you about all the weirdness that went into its creation and its use. That's okay. Yeah, right? Right. Oh my gosh, it's a whole thing. You should check out the Wikipedia page for the MBTI. There's a lot going on there. And then the Wikipedia page for the people who created it. It could happen. Mylan, we must change the title of the stream. Mylan dunks on the MBTI for 1 hour straight. Yeah, pseudoscientific. I guess the people who created it did read Jung? I think they read Jung's works. But modern psychology does not support the MBTI. Yeah, the creators were crazy wild. It was a mother-daughter team, I believe, and some of the other things that I forget if it's the mother or the daughter or if they wrote it together, but some of the other stuff they wrote was yeah, it's heavily based on Jungian psychology, is my understanding. And Jungian psychology really isn't a thing that most modern psychologists use. It's one of those, yeah. Sidari knows how I feel about Young. I will have to ask her later. I'm so curious about how you feel about Young. Have you perhaps played a lot of Persona? Is I haven't actually played much Persona, but boy do I know that Persona goes hard into Young. Ah, the shadow archetype. Something. The shadow is the true self, or like, was it Persona 4 in particular is just Young the video game? Jungian psychology the video game or something? The paper! We need to read the paper! Oh my god. I remembered that I was supposed to be reading the paper and that I choked on my own spit. The highly scientific field of tarot cards. Tarot cards are a really nice aesthetic, though, I'm not gonna lie. Literally dying to read the paper. I'm all out of Dr. Peppers. I'm all out of Dr. Pepper. Fine, what do I do? Okay. Bullen et al. And Yang et al. Both studied Twitter data and found sentiment to be correlated with the stock market returns. Yeah, we broke Z. Z is gone. Yeah, I have tarot cards. I have a couple of tarot card decks, mostly just because I really like the aesthetic of them. V-Theorem tarot deck when? We need more members. Anyway. Actually, I feel like that would go against the whole ethos of V-Theorem. I did it for the aesthetic. Please don't kick me out. Anyway. Who in V-Theorem is the fool? Good question. Shauna. Make Z the star. It's all perfect. Like, do we want to go with, like, just the general surface imagery, or do we want to go with the meaning is the trick, you know? Right, paper. Paper. Resilience. Yes. Distraction is a method of dealing with negative emotions. However, it is not a good method for the long term. Distraction is... Anyway, right. Recently, there have been many papers studying Twitter sentiment during COVID-19, specifically focusing on the effects of lockdowns and restrictions. There's a lot of... I have too many art projects. It's so bad. But technically, if you donate, they have... We're already past that point. We're past that point. I already have to draw something for chat. We haven't decided what yet, but I do have to draw something for chat, and I don't know what it's gonna be. If you want to drop suggestions in there... It would be incredible if all chat could agree on something, but whatever the case. The stipulation, I think, or the specific wording of the reward was the astrologer. It was an OC or VTuber of chat's choice. So we could draw Z the astrologer. That is a thing that we could do if I want Z to never talk to me again, which would be a darn shame. I do like talking to Z. Oh. Okay. I'm locked in. I'm focused. Much work has been done surrounding the use of online social media to study hurricane. Really? I was unaware that that was a thing. Arnold et al. Showed that the volume of tweets and hashtags increases as a function of the intensity of hurricanes. So the worse the hurricane is, the more that people talk about it, which, you know, makes sense. Nar, this will be the great divide of V-Theory. I've got a dip every... Have a good night, Z. Take care, okay? Get plenty of rest for your stream tomorrow. The anti-Z. Hey, we can draw Z's evil twin. Oh. Okay. Locking in. Stark et al. Showed the frequency of tweets related to Hurricane Irma peaked as the hurricane hit, and the level of concern varied by both region and gender. I wonder why gender. That's an interesting thing. I might have to check out this paper and see why, if they had any, like, thoughts about why the sentiment would differ by gender. That's interesting. I'll see AU the next... Take care. Don't die inside too much, okay? This is further developed by Nepali et al., who showed that the sentiment also varies by distance to disaster. This is an interesting one. I've actually tried to do looking at, like, things based on the distance somebody was from a point, but nothing really came out of it. But my problem was like, I was doing conspiracy belief and distance to the Twin Towers. But unfortunately, the data I gathered was like 15 years or something, more than 15 years after the fact. So at that point, I think any effective distance had probably kind of washed out. But I really also think that just the idea of using proximity to a thing as a variable is very fun. I wonder, I imagine it probably would have been a lot more useful of a variable and probably explained a hell of a lot more variance back in the day before the internet made everything so much more accessible. But it's still a really interesting thing, especially for things like natural disasters, where a lot of the people who are directly affected are talking about it. Zoe et al. Used tweets to highlight the disparity of social media usage during Hurricane Harvey. What does the disparity mean? Communities with better social and geographical conditions were shown to send more disaster-related tweets. I wonder if that's because the communities with worse social and geographical conditions were hit harder by the disaster, so they didn't have the bandwidth to tweet. Kind of like what Marlon was suggesting earlier. They just were so beaten down by the disaster that they didn't have time to tweet. And there's like some sort of, I don't want to say sweet spot, because that's kind of sounds too positive, but I wonder if there's like a distance where if you're right in the eye of the disaster, you're not tweeting because you're focusing on surviving. If you're like in a less severe but still within range of the disaster, you are tweeting a lot because you're scared. And then as you get further out, tweets fall again. I feel like that would follow from this data. I wonder if I could find data to look at that. That would be interesting. Kind of like a wave. Anyway, astrology is astrology. They will attempt to tell you a good match for someone. Oh my gosh. Here we build upon these works by examining the emotional response of geographical communities to hurricanes as an incident of natural disasters that affect community well-being. I'm getting so distracted by chat. I'm so interested in this discussion. We must create Z's evil twin. It is a solemn duty. Okay, we're doing it. We're paper. Here we are. We seriously like over an hour in, and I'm not even out of the introduction. We're gonna finish it. We're gonna finish it. If it kills me. Hopefully not if it kills me. We won't finish it if it kills me, because then I won't be here. Anyway. Okay, here we build on the works by examining the emotional response of the geographical communities to hurricanes as an incident of natural disasters that affect community well-being. And now we're in it being in the intro Sidereal Classic. I always thought I was better at this than Sidereal, and I'm being proven wrong. I think it's just that my audience was smaller than Sidereal's, and when I have more people on stream than usual, I am just as bad, if not worse. The last flood and hurricanes in Florida had a lot of social media live. There were influencers that became influencers during that storm. That is wild to me. That is wild. I mean, I guess if you have the mindset to stream your natural disaster, that might be the mindset that you would need to be successful in an influencing space. We posit that hurricanes form a good case study to assess community recovery and resilience for two reasons. Unpredictability. Hurricanes can vary unpredictably in terms of their specific magnitude and geographic scope, making it difficult for communities to anticipate their social and economic effects. And I would argue that this is the same for the wildfires that's going on. Wildfires can be very unpredictable. I have seen wildfires up close that were just tiny things on the side of the road that got put out pretty quickly. But even the smallest fire can end up something huge, you know? Like, it's freaking ridiculous. It's unpredictable how much of an impact there's going to be, and especially because wind plays into it. Wind is a major factor in how big a wildfire gets. And of course, you know how dry the area is. How dry the area is pretty predictable. Wind is a little less predictable. There's a lot of stuff. Yeah. And synchronization. Hurricanes affect all residents of a community in a geographic location at a discrete point in time, allowing analysis of sentiment and dynamics centered on a particular point in time. So yeah, I think all of the things that they're pointing out right now would also apply to the current wildfires. Unfortunately, we don't have the Twitter API anymore to see if we could replicate this with a different kind of incident. In this work, hurricanes serve as natural experiments of how natural disasters may drive changes in well-being of disparate communities. So they are focusing on communities as a variable. That's exciting. I'm really interested to see what they find. In fact, the well-being of entire communities can be observed before, during, and after the hurricanes to study and model the community's resilience. Yes, they've been saying that. We examined the emotional response of 4 geographically distinct communities on social media over 3 Atlantic hurricane seasons. So they've been working on this for 3 solid years. It took them 3 years just to collect the data for this paper. So they've got Irma from Florida, Harvey in Texas, Florence in the Carolinas, Dorian in the Carolinas, Florence in Alabama. They downloaded the geolocated tweets from the hurricane formation to hurricane dissipation. So when the hurricane started to when the hurricane ended. For each hurricane, they define U.S. landfall as the day the hurricane makes landfall in the region of interest. So there's the so this is how they're defining or operationalizing before, during, and after. How would lying down, dissociating, and going silent be modeled here? They wouldn't be able to pick that up outside of an absence of tweets, unfortunately. I don't think they would be able to model that. Oh, yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of missing data here. Like, if you're so emotionally affected that you cannot even bring yourself to tweet, they cannot pick up on that. Which, you know, is kind of the downside to this sort of more correlational, naturalistic type of study. But at least they're not bugging people when they're lying on the floor disassociating, you know? If somebody's lying on the floor disassociating, yeah. It has taken an hour to read 20%. No. I am mildly ashamed. I need to start speedrunning. Oh my god. I don't have a toggle for this, but I've literally turned bright red. Luckily, the form that you see cannot turn bright red. But me... Oh boy. Oh. Okay. Let's do this. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. As shown in figure 1, so here's figure 1. After recording the hurricane location and time period. Okay, oh wait. So before is formation 5 days before landfall. Oh, during. During includes before it makes landfall. I mean, I guess there is like the, you know, rain that precedes hurricanes actually making landfall and stuff like that. And then 5 days after landfall. So they're not just when the hurricane... That's interesting. I wonder why they chose that operationalization. And then 5 days after U.S. landfall to hurricane dissipation. Okay. So here's figure 1. After recording the hurricane location and time period, we used observatory on social media and the Twitter API to 22 words a minute. Please have mercy on me. And this isn't helping it. Okay. We then extract the valence of the resulting set. So valence is just a fancy word for if people are expressing a positive or negative emotion. Valence in psychology. So in psychology, we call emotion affect. That's kind of an oversimplification, but we often use the word affect to refer to emotion in psychology. And then the valence is whether it's positive or negative. So they're extracting whether the tone in the tweets was a positive tone or a negative tone, and also how positive or negative that tone was, using a sentiment analysis tool. What sentiment analysis tool? Tell me, which tool? Did you use Luke? Did you use Luke? Or did you use a Luke dictionary combined with something else? Or did you, oh, what was the name of that other one? Ah, man, I can't remember. Maybe, tell me the name. Well, we're not in the methods section yet, so I shouldn't get too upset. Vader? I haven't heard of Vader before. That's a new one. Okay. Using a sentiment analysis tool to study the pattern of changing Twitter sentiment during the hurricane. Next, we bootstrap the calculated sentiment. So bootstrapping is a type of resampling. You take the same data and you create a bunch of smaller samples by randomly selecting data points from that data, which allows you to essentially have like hundreds of samples drawn from a bigger sample, which basically it's not a perfect method, but it can help reduce sampling error. calculate the sentiment, and then also reduce the effect of outliers, because most of the samples won't have outliers in them, very few will have outliers in them, as opposed to the full sample, which has the outliers for sure. Next, we bootstrapped the calculated sentiment and then built exponential fits, so they're trying to see how well this works. I'm certain they worked back to the acronyms invader. I would not be surprised in the least. They started there, or maybe they like had half the letters and they're like, you know what we could do with this? You know what we could do? We could turn this into Vader. That wouldn't surprise me in the least. Finally, to discover terms that are characteristic to the changes in sentiment, we studied the frequency of the Vader lexicon terms before, during, and after the hurricane landfall. So sentiment analysis does not look at individual words all that much. It uses individual words in it, but when it gives you a result, it's just going to give you a number that expresses how positive or negative something is. Or if you're looking at specific emotions, how much those specific emotions are showing up. It's not going to show you the words people were using. So what they did, they gathered these tweets. They used the Twitter API to collect these tweets. They calculated the sentiment, whether people were expressing positive or negative emotions, graphed or tested the sentiment over time to see how positive and negative expression was changing over time. And then they also, from that model, extracted the most common characteristic words of those tweets that were driving that sentiment. So no and bad are happy and great. No and bad would be negative sentiment. Happy and great would be positive sentiment. So that's fun. I mean, like, one of the things that I love sentiment analysis, but it makes me sad because you're often losing, like, the individual actual words of it and what people are actually saying. And this is a way to get a little bit of that back, which is nice. I like that they did that. I'm always curious about that. I hope that they give us some actual quotes. I love it when they give quotes. We have a ways to go, don't we? I told myself this would go until, like, 9 Eastern, and I think I was wrong. Okay. Here we go. Where were we? We analyzed changes in Twitter sentiment in the regions affected by a set of selected hurricanes, including 2 control regions that were not directly affected by a hurricane. So they also found places that weren't affected by a natural disaster to see just how sentiment shifts over time regardless, because there are other things happening in the world while these hurricanes are going on that might affect sentiment. So they want to try and rule out, oh, that big concert or whatever, or that big news story that was also happening at this time. They want to be able to like factor that out when they're looking at the sentiment changes in areas that were affected by the hurricane. We modeled the trend of changing sentiments before, during, and after each hurricane. Our results indicate that in all cases, Twitter sentiment in each region slowly decreases as the hurricane approaches. So the closer the hurricane gets, the worse people feel. So they're interpreting that as anticipating the hurricane. There's a large drop in sentiment right after the US landfall, reflecting the effects of the hurricane making landfall. So people are getting more and more negative as the hurricane gets closer. When the hurricane hits, they feel really, really bad about it. And a rapid returns to previous levels over a course of 1 to 2 weeks. I wonder how they define rapid, because 1 to 2 weeks, I guess that does feel rapid for emotional recovery from a natural disaster, but it's also a kind of longer period of time. Yeah, so slowly gets more negative as the hurricane approaches, really sharp drop in mood when the hurricane hits, and then as the hurricane dissipates and goes away, they emotionally recover and return back to how they were feeling before the hurricane started coming. Our results indicate that Twitter sentiment does reflect changes in the population's subjective well-being. So subjective well-being is just how well you personally think you are doing, mentally speaking, as a result of a discrete negative event, the hurricane, and that the rate of change over time reflects community-specific response rates, which may be indicative of emotional community resilience. So they're saying this is the community recovery, and I really hope they do break it down by characteristics of communities, because I think that's really interesting. Background on the chosen hurricanes. I don't know, how much do we want to read about the background of the individual hurricanes? They were bad. They caused a lot of damage. People died. It was horrible. Not to say that I don't want to diminish what happened, because these are horrible, horrible things. But oh, hello, welcome, Nakololita. Welcome to this humble stream where I am apparently reading at a rate of 22 words a minute. Okay, so these are the hurricanes that they went through. And specifically, they're also noting that for one of these hurricanes, was this Dorian that they're talking about? The president of the United States at the time had even made a pretty ominous statement about the hurricane, which probably only increased negative affect or like, anxiety and stuff like that leading up to it. We have a figure showing the trajectories of the hurricanes, where they hit and all that thing. So we can see which areas were affected by these storms. All right. 3 distinct regions as a control. Okay, so for as well geographic bounding boxes. Okay, so the boxes that we see here are the areas where they collected the tweets for each hurricane. Cool. So these are the exact geographic regions that they specified. When you're collecting tweets, geolocated tweets on Twitter through the API, you are able to actually basically use coordinates, latitude and longitude, to specify exactly where you want those tweets from. And you can say like this coordinate and then within 20 miles of it or something. Or you can say, here is a box. I have given you like 4 sets of coordinates at each corner of this box. Give me any tweets that come out of this area. And it looks like that is what they did. For Dorian, they looked at Florida, which skimmed but didn't make landfall. So their region where it's like there was some effect, but it didn't fully have the full damage, was Florida. Alabama was their control. It didn't affect anything at all. It didn't actually hit. But people were afraid because of misinformation on social media due to that statement. And then the Carolinas were where it actually did hit. So Florida, there was some effect of it, but it wasn't heavily affected. Alabama, where it didn't hit, but there was anxiety about it because of misinformation. And then the Carolinas, where it actually did hit. That's a really interesting set of comparisons. I'm excited to see what they found there. All right, okay, here, data and methods. Now we can figure out exactly what they did here. A lot of the questions that we've been asking this whole time will finally be answered, and I'm very excited about it. So they're using social media analysis because people talk on social media and it's a major place where people talk, blah, 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 blah. Just justifying that a lot of people use social media, because I've run into this problem too. Like I have done studies with social media data, and I've had like older psychologists who maybe aren't as like, tech savvy being like, do people actually use this? Do people actually talk on social media? So these guys are just like, yeah, people freaking use social media. A lot of people use social media. This isn't a weird, specific, tiny portion of the US. This is actually a lot of the US, okay? This is, in fact, the majority of the US uses social media, even if your generation, as a majority, doesn't use it a lot. We specifically use Twitter due to its microblogging nature. It's commonly used to discuss daily routine and reporting news, as opposed to other sites where you might have longer posts that are more thought out and aren't necessarily more diary or spur-of-the-moment posts. Makes sense. Oh, it uses like Discord. Does that count? I think Discord counts as social media, maybe? There's entire businesses that only survive because, right? My graduate advisor, when I first told my graduate advisor that I was using Twitter data to study, I forget exactly what that particular study was on. I think it was on like voter attitudes and like political extremity and stuff. And I was like, I'm using Twitter data. And my advisor was like, but Twitter's just like LinkedIn, right? People only talk about their careers. Would they really be talking about politics? And I just kind of, I don't know how to explain to you that, people just say stuff on Twitter, and most people aren't using Twitter to market themselves. There are certainly people on Twitter who are using Twitter to market themselves, and that's how my advisor used Twitter at that time, but most people were not using it that way. I feel kind of vindictive not touching Facebook and Twitter. Completely understandable. It is always very risky using any social media site because, they are collecting information on you. Oh, basically any site these days is collecting information on you. I've kind of given up in that regard, but I definitely have been using Facebook less, and I've largely moved off of Twitter. The little demon on my shoulders just shove him in the deep end with no warning or explanation. No, so this was back in like 2016, 2017. And after I told my advisor that Twitter was like people used it as a casual thing, they've actually become like, I wouldn't call them a meme lord. They're not at quite that level. But they have come into their own as a proper casual social media user, and honestly it's really really funny. I very much enjoyed watching their journey, but I understand why these authors felt it necessary to justify that yes, people actually do use social media to talk about their lives, because that is something that I have encountered and had to explain to another psychologist. So they're probably like, just in case the peer reviewers are like boomers who barely even have a Facebook account, if that, we're just going to specify, hey, people, oh my god! Oh my god! Who did that? Oh my god. I'm okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I knocked my empty Dr. Pepper bottle off the desk because of that donation sound. And now my cat is like, what happened? What just happened? Where are we? Where is my thing? Here. Let's refresh this and see what happened. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the donation. It will be a huge help. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, I can't see who did it individually on my page, but it is very much appreciated. Yeah, Cat's like, why are you knocking things off? That's not what you're supposed to do. How dare you? You're taking my job. I cannot afford this in this economy. He's recovered though. He went off somewhere else. It's okay. $2 threw me off. Just $2, loud noise. I am destroyed. After the stream, I'm gonna be the one laying on the ground disassociating because of sudden loud noises. Oh, okay. Locking back in. Thank you very, very much, though. It is much appreciated. Thank you so much. Okay. They collected these geolocated Twitter data that was posted from 2016 to 2019 from this, what was it again? It seems like it's something that helps people collect social media data. So maybe they weren't relying just on the usual free API. Maybe they were able to get some extra in there. Okay. Here we only retain tweets whose geolocation data match the bounding boxes. Oh, okay. Osme replies, so they were getting see that 10% random sample? That's referring to what the standard Twitter API, if you don't pay like the however much for the fire hoses, any standard Twitter API request gives you a random sample of 10% of all the tweets that meet your criteria. But this looks like this is just 10% of tweets in general. And from that 10% of tweets in general, because there was such a huge volume of them, they got 10% of tweets and then narrowed down that 10% to only tweets that occurred in the areas that they cared about. So here's a summary of their raw data. The hurricane duration when it happened, the location the tweets are from, and how many tweets they had from each region. So it looks like they had the most tweets from Hurricane Irma in 2017, from Florida, 823,537 tweets, which is pretty respectable, and the least tweets from Hurricane Dorian in Alabama, which was 2,760, which I think makes sense to an extent because, as they mentioned, the Hurricane Dorian in Alabama, it didn't actually hit Alabama. Alabama wasn't at risk of being hit. There was just some misinformation that said that it would hit Alabama, even though it wasn't gonna. So it makes sense that that would have the least tweets. Though it is interesting that they have way more tweets for the 2017 and 2018 hurricanes than the 2019 hurricane. I wonder why. I wonder if they're going to mention why. That is strange. A list of tweet IDs for tweets used in this analysis can be... Oh! They give us the tweet IDs! You know, something that I've noticed about this kind of thing, though, is that a lot of the time, a lot of these tweets have been deleted by the time, well, maybe that's just the topics that I study. Like, I study belief in conspiracy theories, so a lot of the time when I try, like, I'll collect Twitter data and then I'll come back to it several years later to analyze it, and I'll try and find the tweets on the website, and, like, the account has been locked, the account has been banned, the tweet has been deleted, and I'm not sure if that's because of the topic that I study in particular, or if that's just a thing. So I wonder if we did go and try and find one of these random tweets. Do you think we could? Oh, right, I need to log in to use Twitter. I'm not going to do that. But that's a fun thing you can do. If you go to an individual tweet on the website that I'm going to keep stubbornly referring to as Twitter, there's a string of numbers in the URL, and if you replace that string of numbers with one of these strings of numbers, it will take you to the tweet. You don't even need to replace the username, which is a little weird. You just need to replace the string of numbers, and it will take you to that tweet. So we could actually go and look at these tweets if I was willing to show you my Twitter account, which I am not really feeling right now. I'm sorry. No offense to any of y'all. Also, maybe yeah, okay. It's like a DOI. Yeah, it's a lot like a DOI. Exactly. Oh, hello, kitty. What you doing? I love you. You are my favorite kitty. Welcome back, Z. Hello. We've made it into the methods section. I did not know that the tweets had DOI. Yeah, they're not quite DOIs, but they function similarly to DOIs. Cat pick, no. No kitty pics right now. No kitty pics right now, because I don't know how to do that effectively without, like, accidentally... Could I? Could I do that? Oh, yeah, that's solid progress. Can I show you a picture of my cat? I'm gonna see if I can add a picture of my cat, because I think everybody should see my cat at all times. I think that's very important. So I'm gonna see if I can find a picture of him, because everybody needs to know that he is the best, objectively speaking. Oh, I don't. I just, this is a new computer. It looks like I don't have any pictures of him yet, which is some kind of sin. Yeah, I don't have a... All right, I will find a picture of my little guy, because it's very important that my little guy exists. See, Marlon understands. Marlon understands the deep importance of finding a picture of the little guy, because he is the best in the world. This is the truth, and I will hear no arguments, because that's my son. Okay, let's do it. We'll show you the little guy. This is the cat tax, as they say. Show me my son. My son! That's my son. This is my son. He is the most perfect creature in all of existence. He is the fluffiest man in the entire world. And I love him so. I love him so much. Where are you? I need to know where you are. It's important to... He's a fluffy guy. He's your man. He's the best. He's the best. I want to see him right now. My son, where are you? Do not leave me. I miss you already. I don't know where he is. I don't know where my son is. I'm just gonna stare at this for a minute. Recharge. My beautiful baby boy. You're not a baby, you're a young man. He actually knows stats. He has sat through my stats class twice when I was teaching during COVID. This little man, he's very intelligent. We should give him a PhD. Yes, you're always your baby, but I don't want to infantilize him. He deserves better than that. He is a young man. Mm-hmm. I should get back to work. Or not work. I should get back to reading this paper because the longer this goes on, he might have to wait for dinner, and that would be actually a crime. So we must persist so that he can have dinner on time. This is for his sake. Oh, no. Okay. All right. I miss him already. Where did he go? Okay. 28 words per minute, worth it for Cat. Yes. Look, we're speeding up. Look at me go. We're doing it. We're speeding up. We're increasing the speed. We're gradually ramping up. I should draw like a regression line to figure out how fast I'll be by the time, like, if this stream hits 3 hours, how many words per minute will I be at then? Okay. Shows the weekly and daily okay, yeah. Oh, frequency of the filtered tweets. Reaches show an increase in activity around their landfalls, indicating that user activity increased during the hurricane and that Twitter... Whoa! Why? Thank you. Hello, Elf. Hello, Kitty. I'm sorry. He's back. Oh my god. Okay. Let's see what happened. Thank you very much for the donation. Oh my god. Oh. Bully the street. Oh. I did not think we'd get this far. Thank you. Thank you, Astral Atropos. That was mean, but I appreciate it all the same. That was both mean and nice. That was very good timing, and you know what? I will forgive you because it was very funny. Oh, thank you. Mr. Kitty, please come here. I need to pet you. Oh my gosh, we did. Oh my gosh, that's incredible! And this is only the second stream. This is only the second stream of the series. Oh my gosh, y'all. This is absolutely incredible. Okay, after we finish the methods section, let's take a break to start figuring out some of those milestone rewards, yeah? Yeah, I think that's a good idea. But we must finish the methods section. We're gonna do it. I believe in us. We can do it. Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. See, look how far we made it. Okay. Locking in. Okay, so here we have, this is the tweet frequency. And here is the days from landfall. And I know Marlon earlier was asking about, like, what about people who just sort of like shut down kind of emotionally, like during the hurricane. And so if that was the case, see this 0? This line right here where it says 0 is when the hurricane made landfall. And if that's the case, it wouldn't have been possible without you organizing all of this. You herded so many cats. I can't even imagine how stressful this was. Oh my gosh, but thank you so much for organizing this. And thank you to everybody who's contributed. Okay, right. So if Marlon's concerned, this would answer that question. It doesn't seem like there was actually any drop in overall tweet volume in these areas when the hurricanes hit. The only place where we're actually seeing tweets dropping the day the hurricane hit, like, well, I guess Dorian in the Carolinas, there's a bit of a drop. There's a huge spike in tweets just before the hurricane made landfall, and then there's a drop there. Yeah, but no long-term phase transition. The one major one where there appears to be a drop right when it made landfall, or I guess it's hard to tell. If this might be a drop right before they made landfall, and then like going up after is Alabama, where Dorian didn't actually hit. Dorian hit hardest in the Carolinas, so there was a whole bunch of tweets right before landfall, and it fell off after landfall, but at a fairly consistent level, I think. Yeah. Wonder what's with Harvey, with like 18 days before Harvey made landfall, with this sudden drop in tweets. That's weird. I wonder what happened there. Maybe Twitter, maybe that was one of those days when Twitter had like its really big outages. I don't know. No. I just think this kind of data is so interesting. Okay. Sentiment analysis. Now we're going to learn more about how they analyze their data. Sentiment analysis refers to a collection of supervised or unsupervised natural language processing technique. There's that NLP that we were talking about earlier. That maps the content of a text or a rating to a rating or classification of its sentiment or emotions. Yeah. So yeah, it's a way of measuring emotional language. To assess the sensitivity of our analysis to the choice of sentiment tool, we subject each tweet to 2 different sentiment analysis tools. First, we use valence-aware dictionary for sentiment research. Whoever said they really, like, they tried really hard for that Vader acronym, you can see it. Look at that. Look at that. They really wanted that to say Vader. You know, I've seen worse. ANOVA, the analysis of variance. I'm going to type that in chat just because the people who created ANOVA went so hard, and for what? Analysis of variance. So this isn't the most forced acronym I've ever seen, but it's up there. It's up there. Oh, a tool highly suitable for Twitter content using a large lexicon that was developed through crowdsourcing Sentiment Radar. Vadar matches the terms in a tweet to an extensive lexicon of 7,517 terms. So even if you're using these natural language processing sort of machine learning techniques, you do have to base it on something called you have to have some sort of reference thing. And it sounds like they were using something that we call a dictionary in language in text analysis. A dictionary is just a list of words that all sort of fall in a certain category. And it looks like these words all these were all emotion words. They applied a set of grammatical rules that acknowledge common use of punctuation, capitalization, modifiers, and negation that can affect a tweet's sentiment. So yeah, here you go. They can differentiate between saying you're not pleased and you are pleased. Vader returns a tweet's valence on a rating from -1, negative valence, to +1, positive valence. Vader does not natively differentiate between the absence of a match and neutral sentiment. We modified Vader to output 0 for neutral sentiment and null for no matching words. So, a -1 is this tweet is entirely negative. This person's just made a really, really downer of a post. +1 is this tweet's entirely positive. This is the most upbeat, Pollyanna-ish post you've ever seen. 0 is there are no, like, 0, it's some sort of mix. There's no clear leaning towards positive or negative emotions. And null is there were no emotion words in this tweet at all. At least, no emotion words that were in the list of emotion words they used appeared in this tweet, so they could not get a sentiment out of it. Second, we use Vader. Oh yeah, Luke, this is the one that I mentioned earlier. Generated values for each tweet. I am extremely not pleased. Oh man, you know, speaking of the way people talk on the internet, I gotta recommend this one book that I will always recommend. It's called Because Internet by, I think, Gretchen McCullough. It's a linguistics book, and obviously linguistics isn't my field, but it is so much fun. It's talking about a lot about how we convey tone and stuff through punctuation, capitalization, the spacing that we put between words and things like that. It talks a lot about just a lot of different ways that we communicate meaning through text on the internet. It's so cool. Anyway, it has a whole section on keyboard smashing, okay? It's that good. Okay. So, Luke is the one that I've heard of the most. Luke is kind of, for a long time, had been the standard in psychology. It sounds like Vader is Luke is sort of a more general tool that can be used with any type of text. Vader, Gretchen, Dr. McCullough also has a thing on capitalizing the first letter of each word, which I think was like, I think it was a method, she described it as a method of emphasis or something. So they definitely named it Vader to fit with Luke if it was, oh my god. Astral Atropos, you are so right. You are so right. I did not even catch on to that. Oh my god, that's painful. But you know what? I actually kind of respect it. This explains so much. I need to tell my friend who also one of my friends in grad school, we learned text analysis together, and he needs to know about this. This is so right after the stream, I am texting him like, did you know that there's an alternative to Luke called Vader? Oh my god. Yeah, Marlon, you're also right that a certain subculture, I can think of one particular subculture that might be inclined to type that particular way, but it seems like it's also a more general thing too. Anyway, oh my god. That's why Astral is named Astral, obviously, because Astral's on a whole other level. That's clearly what's happening here. Oh my gosh. You know, I normally hate puns, but I will accept this pun. This is one of the rare puns that I will gladly accept. Okay. So, using a predefined dictionary, Luke returns a positive LWPR and negative LWNR word ratio, i.e. the number of positive or negative words divided by the total number of words in the tweets. Like the German team that named one of their genes, it was the fall of GC Islands, which make you cry. Oh my gosh, I need to look into that after. That sounds like a fun story that I'll have to go to Fi and be like, please explain this to me because it sounds fascinating, but I do not have the relevant background knowledge. Okay. Vader was shown to outperform Luke in both macro F1 score and coverage, so it's picking up more than Luke, which makes sense. Luke has generally been, it's a very basic way of dealing with it. First of all, it sounds like Vader is way more calibrated for dealing with social media text, whereas Luke is just for text in general. Also, Luke just uses what's called a bag of word approach. It just counts words, so it can't take context into account. See this, like, I am extremely not pleased sentence? Luke would take that as positive because it can't take that not into account. Oh, yeah, good. Go eat dinner, get some food. Thank you for coming. It was really nice having you here. Get some rest, okay? And I'll come to your stream tomorrow for sure. I'm really looking forward to it. I am fascinated by the concept of soldering, so I'm pumped. Okay, right. Yeah, so it makes sense that Luke wouldn't do as well because Luke can't pick up on context clues like this. That's not how Luke operates. It's a very, very basic tool that can't do that kind of thing. All right, we first grouped the tweets of each region into 3 time periods, before, during, and after, as defined in the introduction. We then tokenized each tweet. So tokenized is one of the first steps that you use when you're preparing any text for text analysis and natural language processing. It's essentially... there's various ways you can do tokens. You can do tokens, each individual word is a token. You can also have things called bigrams. Bigrams are 2 words and treating those 2 words as a unit. They removed words, the thing of tuples and words in a sentence having semantic significance. Yeah, exactly. I think I've heard tuples referred to as trigrams in terms of sentiment analysis and text analysis, but I'm not sure. What's the point of doing a science if you can't insert your interest into the fundamental names for things? The taxonomist must... I know, right? I want to name something subtly nerdy that only the nerds would pick up on. I really want to be able to do that someday. That is like a life goal, but that's not very easy for psychologists to do, especially psychologists who aren't like neuroscientists. I can't exactly like name some effect that I've found, like the Baccano effect, because then I'd have to explain what Baccano was. I can't... It's a shame. I'm jealous of taxonomists because they can get away with that a heck of a lot easier than people like me can. Anyway, so they tokenized each tweet. Essentially, they're preparing it for sentiment analysis and removed words that were not included in the Vader lexicon because we were only interested in words that affect the That, I don't necessarily agree with them doing that. I would not have removed those words because just because they're not in the Vader dictionary doesn't mean they're not meaningful. And depending on the type of text analysis you're doing, especially if it's using some form of machine learning, it can extract meaning from words that aren't in your dictionary. So it's possible I'm missing something here, but that's not how I would have done it personally. Whatever. We calculated the TF-IDF of each word. So this is, what is it? Term frequency inverse dictionary frequency. It's been so long since I looked up what TF-IDF meant. I know what it means. I don't remember what it stands for. I wonder if Vader understands Skibbity Gat, Ohio. Probably. Well, actually, no. This paper's from 2022, so I don't think that the version of Vader that they were using would have understood that, but it's possible that a more modern version of Vader would. Then again, if Vader's only about sentiment analysis, uh, I think only Skibbity and Ohio convey sentiment. I don't think Gat conveys a sentiment. I think Skibbity and Ohio both are negative sentiment. I would say they've got a negative valence to them. I think Gat is neutral in that regard. I'm not entirely sure. The process of extracting meaning from unlabeled structured data is fascinating, both in human language and in bio. So true. It's so cool. It's so cool. Okay, all right. So TF-IDF word frequencies. This is something. Now, yeah, Ohio's negative. Ohio's negative, unfortunately. Or no, wait, actually no. I've heard some people use it as positive. I know Ohio mostly means weird. I think, did I ever tell you that I had a student who sent me an email at the end of the semester, and he said something along the lines of, your Skibbity toilet level something Ohio Riz was incredible or something like that, and like I loved it so much I included it in my end of semester like evaluation report as like a positive comment I received from a student. My partner made me a pin with it on it. Oh my gosh, I've been to Ohio, and when I was in Ohio last, there was a building that had like a big sign like defending Ohio, like Ohio is good actually, or something like that, or like you just don't understand Ohio, or something like that, when I was just walking around randomly, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I think the big joke of Ohio is that like most astronauts in the US have become from Ohio, or have come from Ohio, and the joke is that they became astronauts because growing up in Ohio made them simply want to escape the planet or something. I don't think Ohio's that bad. I really don't think it's that bad. I've only been a few times, but imagine being in Ohio. You know what? I have been to the Ohio State University for a visit, and they had a very nice donut shop. So you know what? I will give. Apparently, it's open like 24 hours. Anyway, check out, there's a donut shop near Ohio State University that has ridiculously long hours, and I definitely recommend you check it out. It makes any trip to Ohio worth it. Not that I'm saying it's not worth it to go to Ohio, but like, it's a darn good donut shop, and you should check it out. Shout out to Ohio. Yeah. This is the Defending Ohio stream. If I look at the stream after it's over and I see I get a dislike or like a few dislikes, I'm gonna assume that it's because I'm defending Ohio. Right, okay. Ohio apologist went to a conference at Ohio State and they did some amazing. Yeah, that Ohio State, it's really not that bad. I mean, I get why people dunk on them, especially after they tried to trademark the V, but like it's actually a pretty nice campus, you know? Yeah, I really did enjoy the campus, and I would love to go there again. Their psychology building is actually pretty nice too. I don't think their psychology building has a creepy basement, which in my personal opinion means it's not actually a psychology building, but like, you know, I mean, I can't complain. Okay, right. I was explaining TF IDF. I think I talked about this a bit earlier, but TF IDF is like saying, not only are you counting how common words are, so with dictionary analysis, with just straight up, it's called bag of words, and it just says whatever words appear most in this text are the most important words. But of course, there are some words that appear in any text, like the word a, or to, or in, or whatever. And so TF-IDF says it takes into account how common a word is used in a document, but IDF, inverse dictionary frequency, says it's also taking into account how uncommon that word is in other texts. So it's saying this word shows up a lot in this text, but it's not actually a common word, and therefore it must be a very important word. That's what TF-IDF does. doing a stream on cold fusion scandal, and it included a bit on Ohio's academic. Oh yeah, I think I've watched the first video of that series. It was really interesting. I'll have to catch up on it. I don't know if it was Ohio though. It might have been Ohio. I just have a horrible memory. TFIDF, thank Frank, it's Dank Friday. Relevant! Look at that! It's Friday. We did it. All right, okay. So they calculate the TF-IDF of each word during the time period, expressing the specific word, how specific the word is to the time period. So they're not only doing TF-IDF overall to see if, because then they'd probably just get things like hurricane popping up at the top of all of these. They're looking at which words were most common in specific time periods, like which unusual words were most common in those specific time periods, which is an interesting way of doing it. Then they z-scored to normalize the values of each word using the mean standard across the 3 time periods, resulting in a 3x1 vector of normalized TF-IDF scores. I wonder why they normalized them. Were they that? I thought... It's been a while since I've done text analysis. I thought... I could be wrong that TF-IDF is already, to an extent, normalized on... Well, it wouldn't have the standard deviation normalized, but the range, it's all in the same range. It's on the same scale, at least. Whatever. I mean, z-scoring it probably wouldn't hurt, so that's okay. I'm not gonna complain about that. Okay, as a result, each word contains a before, during, and after z-score normalized TF-IDF score that expresses the degree to which the TF-IDF value for the term of a period deviates from the 2 other periods. So they're specifically analyzing the data in a way they could see if one word is especially prominent before, during, or after. And specifically unusual words that aren't just what we call stop words, the very common words like and the. Using the words as labels, the 3x1 TF-IDF vectors as features, we ran a k-means clustering with k2 clusters. Representing a decrease in normal, very technical. They clustered to see if they could find topics, essentially. Like, are there common themes here in this text? Topic analysis is a really cool thing. That's a thing I would love to do. Using the words as label. I just remembered that because we hit 50, I'm gonna have to do a full APA paper. I'm sorry, that just hit me. Oh man, I'm gonna have to write like this. Oh boy. Don't have mercy on me on the topic. Whatever topic you want, I will do. But oh my gosh, I just realized that I might have to start explaining TF-IDF. Oh, the horror hit me. Okay. One comparison was Kendall rank coefficient. Okay, grouped into 2 clusters, up during the hurricane versus down, in order to determine if there's a change in the importance of Vader words, so these sentiment, these emotion words. What's an archival study? An archival study is a study based on existing data. You are not, yeah, I would love to do a text analysis stream. I'm really rusty, so it would be really, what is the word? It would be very scuffed, but I think it would be fun. An archival study is a study using data that already exists out in the world. So I'm not going out and collecting new data. I'm not doing my own experiment. I'm not sending out surveys or anything. I'm finding data that already exists, whether that's a pre-existing data set or whether I'm collecting text from around the internet and compiling it into my own data set. But it's information that is already out there. I'm analyzing what's called archival data, pre-existing data that's stored somewhere. I'm not generating my own data. That's an archival study. Because I don't want to do a whole IRB for a stream. That would be too much. One day I will do that, but that would have to be a series of streams because IRBs can take quite some time to get approved, so I wouldn't be able to do that over the course of a stream. But an archival study, I could at least do the study in one stream, and then, depending on how complex the study is, and then, like, write it up in another stream or something like that. Anyway, maybe we can skip a bunch of this technicality, like how exactly they did it. Kendall rank coefficient, similar, high correlation corresponds to nearly similar ranking with low correlation. So what they're saying here, they're just saying if people are using similar sentiment words, so similar emotional words at all time points, or if there was a change in the type of emotions people were expressing across the time points. That's all. Bootstrapping the null model, volume of tweets and Twitter samples changes with time. Yep, we noticed that. We noticed that there are actually a lot more tweets in the 2017 and 2018 data sets than there was for the 2019 data set, which I still think is really weird. I'm still not sure why that would be the case. These differences can lead to variance and estimation errors, unless they collected this data in 2019, so there was... No, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they'll mention it in the discussion section in their limitations. Given a timeline, tweets split TK to observe sentiment of Z-score, calculate if the day K was statistically significantly high or low. We first bootstrap by calculating the mean sentiment of a random sample, blah, 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 blah. They did it a lot. They resampled their data a whole bunch, ran the same test a bunch of different times. So they could be extra sure that their results were reliable. They're reanalyzing, they're basically doing mini replications. They're redoing their study over and over by using different sets of tweets from the same data set. And they did this 10,000 times per day they had data for. I cannot even imagine how long this took to run on their computers. This is the type of analysis that actually, like, this TF-IDF stuff and like NLP stuff can take a very long time to run, depending on how much data you have. This might not take as much time, but this is still one of those analyses where... Hi. This is still one of those analyses where you can go and grab a cup of coffee while it's calculating. Hello. Oh my God. Thank you. I don't know what just happened. Dog! Yeah, it looks like Z set up a sheep, which is very good. We are very happy that there is a sheep. Oh, I think somebody donated to the main fundraiser rather than to my specific link. Okay, so I'm safe. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Maybe if I make my OBS thing a bit bigger, I can actually read the names that I am seeing. I can't. But thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. So they did a bunch of fancy stats to make sure that their results were reliable and replicable within their own sample. The null model indicates the expected sentiment for a random sample of tweets. We compare observed sentiment values to this null model to gauge their significance. So I believe the null model is just a baseline what emotions would be looking like then. Oh, whoa. I discovered something new. Someone send me a message. I hope it's not important. Oh. Did somebody cross-post my picture of Mr. Kitty? Very good. Okay, sorry. More people need to see Mr. Kitty. It's so important. And now Mr. Kitty is in Z's Discord, so... Are you happy, Mr. Kitty? Mr. Kitty does not care. He is a cool cat. Okay, right. Null model indicates the expected sentiment for a random sample of tweets, so regardless of what is currently going on, this is just the general expected emotions that we would expect to be happening, regardless of any hurricanes or time points, I think. They compared the data based on when it was collected to this sort of baseline level of expression. Okay, I'm just gonna scroll past that. We don't need to get too into detail there. And also, the stream is almost at the point where I was going to end it initially, which I don't think is going to happen. I am so sorry to the next person on the schedule. Who is that? Yeah. Oh, that starts at 6:30. We got a bit. We're up to 32 words a minute because I skipped like 2 sections. Thank you. I am feeling a bit better at least. Valence fits estimate the rate of sentiment decay. So sentiment decay would be that positive or negative emotion returning back to baseline. Maybe start skimming, I don't know. And recovery surrounding each hurricane. We haven't even gotten to the results section. That's the embarrassing. We fit several models to region sentiment over time. We group Twitter sentiment in 12-hour windows, then calculate the mean. So essentially, they're making it so there's less fluctuation. They're averaging over 12-hour time periods, so they're not like... Because the weird thing about working with tweets that I've learned is different people have different information at the same time. So we might have some people who have been thinking about, say, this hurricane for a very long time and are tweeting about it then, or people who have only just heard about the latest developments of the hurricane and they're all tweeting at the same time. So I think averaging into 12-hour windows makes sense, because at least at that point you can be a bit more confident that all of your audience has the general stuff. I know Fi brings up that he skips a meeting. If this was in a topic that I typically studied, so like if this was in conspiracy theories, which is my area of specialty, I would just straight up skip the introduction because I probably read all the papers in the introduction anyway. But because I haven't really read papers in the resilience literature before, that's why I went through the whole introduction. Normally, though, I would do the same thing as Fi, and if it was in my specialty, I would absolutely just skip straight to the methods. Not even ashamed to admit it. Okay, we're at the results, which means let's take a break and try and figure out what we're doing for these incentives. So, I don't know, only in your specialty. Yeah, exactly. Only in your specialty. Same. Yeah. We can get away with it in our specialty, but in something other than our specialty, it says 62% though. Hey! I definitely did not skip intros for my collab streams outside of a specialty. Yeah, makes sense. Like, I'm the same. I'm very much the same. If it's in your specialty, you can skip the intro. If it's outside of your specialty, it's a very good idea to read the intro still. Okay, so the first one that we came upon, the first milestone that we hit, was I'll draw a OC or VTuber of the chat's choice. Is there anything that any of you particularly want to see me draw? And I wish I had a better way to do this, but I didn't plan this far enough ahead of time. Who should I draw? Should I draw Z's alter ego? A, the astrologer. I feel like I should be quiet here to not abuse your power. Yeah, if you wanted me to draw something, all you need to do it is mention it in an interesting enough way in the V-Theorem Discord, and chances are I'll do it. It's too powerful. You are far too powerful. The astrologer is pretty funny, though, I'm not gonna lie. I do like that idea a lot. But this is not for me. I don't get to decide. Yeah, I think Mylan's also the creator of Yif the Pathogen. I am! I'm creating evil alter egos for everyone. I need to keep this up. We need to get Sidarian evil equivalent. Yif the Pathogen, A the astrologer. Sidarian would be, I don't know, a mentalist maybe? Psy as in psychic? I don't know. The astrologer maybe with one of those twirly villain mustaches. Any other ideas? Because if not, I'm putting that down. A the astrologer. I'll give it another. The opposite of magical girl equals a normal boy. That's true. A the astrologer with twirly mustache. Last call for any ideas for things to draw. 5, 4, 3, 2. Sclerosis. All right, I'm closing it. We're doing A the astrologer. Next one, $15 milestone. I will read a paper on a topic of chat's choice on stream. What topics are we interested in? A can of tomato soup, but evil. Oh no! I can draw A the astrologer holding an evil can of tomato soup. Hell yeah. Okay, let's do that. A the astrologer holding an evil can of tomato soup. Okay. I'll read a paper on, so what topics? What topics would you like me to read a paper on? Many potential topics out there. It's social psychology, that can cover just about anything. Or you can make me suffer and make me read a paper that is completely out of my subject area. If you want to really make me cry, you can make me read an economics paper. Ah. I don't know why, but economics in particular is what really destroys me. But of course, I'm delighted to read psychology papers as well. Or whatever. Particle physics paper. Particle physics. Okay, I'll note that down. Particle physics, the potential blue ball discovery. I have no idea what that means, but if nobody has any other suggestions, I guess I'm gonna find out. Or maybe I won't find out. Maybe I'll just be confused the entire time. I'll have to go to Z for like emotional support. I'll be like, Z, save me. I don't know what's happening. All right. Make Mylan cry on stream. Let's do it. It's what I deserve. All right. 5. I thought suggesting the inflammasome would have been bad. We can go with the inflammasome. What do we want to do? The particle physics or this inflammasome thing? Moral licensing. Oh my gosh, I actually know stuff about moral licensing. I know stuff about moral licensing, so I could actually add insight while I was reading that. So it's like, do you want to see me suffer? Or do you want to see me read a paper where I actually have some insight? That's the question. Maybe I should put up a poll. Yeah, let's make a poll. Okay. Which topic? Moral licensing. Glue ball. Whatever that is. And then inflammasome. Okay, no, I don't want to add another option. Go, I just want to make the poll. Ah, where did it? Everything hates me. Sorry. I got this. We can do it. There we go. Bottom text. All right, let's let that run for a little bit. And while we're doing that, we might as well think about what type of data you'd like to see me analyze. Because that's our next thing that we got to figure out. Are there papers on the overlap of psychology and specific neural circuits like the multiple demand network or default mode network? Pretty sure. Yeah. I mean, I know that there is a lot of overlap between psychology and neuroscience and neural circuits in particular. I think there's a field called like behavioral neuroscience that seems to be a pretty decent overlap between psychology and neuroscience as well. I don't know too much about it. Which is funny, because the next scripted video I'm doing does involve me discussing neural circuits, but only on a very, very general level. Personal interest is in rhetorical analysis of political speeches, but that one might... Well, I mean, I do a lot of work in political psychology, so... I mean, I can talk about it. Okay, I'm gonna... Last chance to vote in the poll. Seeing this one post where someone analyzed hundreds of anime where the main characters and plotted which seats they're most likely to sit. I love that. I love that so much. That sounds like exactly the kind of stupid thing I would analyze. And I think I saw that too. It's always like, I mean, the data set doesn't have to be psychology. I will analyze any data set. I don't care. I've analyzed data sets on UFO sightings. I've analyzed the college, what are they called? The Cards Against Humanity data sets, which, like, some of those questions are, like, legitimate political questions that are very important. And other questions are, like, do you think it's okay to pee in the shower, you know? Like, I've done data analysis on the McDonald's menu nutrition information. I do not care. Tell me what type of data set you want to see me analyze, and I will do it. The one where I'm creating a data set, would be that would be the $50 study one. If I have to go and like I have to watch a bunch of anime and compile the own data set, like I'm not using an existing data set. At that point, I think that would count for the full paper. So I'm totally willing to write a full APA paper on which seat protagonists most often use. But all right, I think I'm gonna call that as moral licensing for the win. I wonder if there's a dataset for the Jersey drones. I wonder too. All right, thank you for saving me, by the way, from particle physics. Much appreciated. I think I'm very grateful. Thank you, Xenotime. Wait, was Xenotime? Xenotime, you were both the cause and the and the solution to my terror. Thank you, I think. Okay. So next one, which type of data set do we want to work at? Yeah, let's look to see if we can find a data set about drones. Drone sighting data set, because that would be fun. Okay, drone detection, UAS sightings report. Unmanned aircraft sightings from pilots, citizens, and law enforcement remain high. More than 100 reports a month. Is this in a format that I could... Okay. This data set has dates, it has cities, and a summary. Okay, that's not a lot of data to work with. I guess I could, like, do an analysis where I plot drone sightings over time in various cities to see where most drones are being spotted and stuff like that. That is a thing I could potentially do. VTuber visual analysis. I'd be happy to do that. If I knows that I actually have a VTuber, a weird little data set that I'm working on for VTuber stuff for an upcoming video thing. It's not serious at all, but it's silly. Let's see. Here's another drone sighting data set. Ooh, so this contains the date and time, where it happens. This also is not including a lot of information to play with, unfortunately. What other topics sound interesting? Stats, VTuber Twitch fans versus FleshTuber fans? Oh, that sounds neat. I'm interested in that as well. I know that there's been a lot of discussion of that. Does Twitch make banned datasets public? There's stream charts. Stream charts have like full-on datasets, or is it just like graphics and stuff? Not sure, he just pulled figures. That's fair. Huh. Might be something. It looks like this is like a data analysis tool. It's not necessarily, it doesn't contain raw data. So it'd be something I'd have to create a data set for, which is a lot. Let's see. Streamer bans. Okay, they have a dashboard, but give me a spreadsheet. That's what I want. I want a spreadsheet. Any other thoughts? I could probably be doing this over here. I know Google has its own dataset search. Let's see. Let's see. Twitch user moderation channel enforcement actions. Creators and their mods on the video. Number of bans increased significantly compared to previous reporting period. Use of third-party tools. Let's see. Is this potentially some data I could use? Oh, you can't see what I'm doing because it's hidden. Does this have actual data though? Or is this just... I think it might just be the annoying thing about this website is a lot of the time it says it as data, but it's really just a graph. Only is going mental, and I was wondering if it's... Yeah, you know, I think my personal opinion, just like anecdotally, is that I think the bands are about equal. I think a lot of VTubers dress in outfits that I would say probably go against the TOS. And flesh tubers also do that, obviously. But I feel like it's almost a norm that you almost have to do that in VTubing. There's a lot more pressure, I think, at least for femme presenting VTubers to be wearing something very sexy or have like a big chest or something like that. And that does, yeah, it's tricky. I know that I can scrape Reddit, or at least I used to be able to scrape Reddit data. I think they made some major changes to their API, so I'm not really sure. Let's see. What's this? I don't want AI. Yeah, all these API paywalls. I'm broke. I can't go to your paywall. Makes me sad. Why don't you love me? Give me your data. I'm just a small myelin. Just a little myelin. I just want some data. I won't hurt anybody. I just want data. That's all. I wonder if there's any VTuber datasets. VTuber market size Japan. Most popular VTuber agencies. VTuber. Meh. Is this a dataset or is this just another graph? Because that looks like a graph. I'm gonna fight. Poor sad my. I know! Just give me some data to snack on. I'll be very sad if I don't get my data. It's the saddest thing in the world. Just, you know. Shut up. You can just give me some data. Not gonna hurt anyone. I should give this model the ability to do puppy eyes or something. Give me a spreadsheet. Give me something I can analyze. Why don't you love me? Why don't you love me? Tell me where your data's from. It's so sad. Every day, I suffer a little more. Because no one will give me their data. They're scared of me. They're scared of me. This is useless. This is useless. This is so sad. Anyway, actually streaming how a psychologist tries to find data to analyze is kind of interesting. I don't know if this is necessarily how a psychologist would normally do this, but this is how I would normally do it, so maybe there's that. VTuber data XLSX or no CSV. Give me a CSV. I like CSVs. CSVs are good. Oh, Kaggle is kind of weird because Kaggle's like it does have data, but it's typically doesn't document it very well. Chat events by our honeybee cluster. Holodex is a stream index provide chats from at least every 6 months. Research ideas. Okay. I mean, this is interesting. Channels, channel stats. What about this? We could work with this. It says timestamps, IDs, who sent the message, what the message was. So we could even do text analysis on this. Whether that person was a member, whether they're a moderator, whether it's an account, membership status, is how that. Timestamp, channel's ID. Nice! That's exciting. I'm very excited to see what you do. Oh, it has super chats. How does this sound? Does this sound all right? Does this sound okay? We can deal with this data set? If I can figure out how to make it work, this could be a fun data set to play with. Yeah, all right. I will put that down. And hopefully it works. So as you, everything gets, yeah, that's true. Very, very true. The Google Scholar happy zone. Okay, next one. Yeah, if I can make it work. I don't use Python, and it looks like this data set is optimized for Python, but might be able to, if I can figure it out, ban events.csv. Yeah. Video ID, channel ID, timestamp for bans, custom emojis. Yeah, I'm excited about that. Okay. Next one. Psychology short video on an anime of chat's choice. So my psychology short videos, if you're not familiar with them, they are maybe 5 to 10 minute videos where I do a bit of a dive into like the psychological research that sort of helps explain or like give context to a scene or a character in an anime or in a manga or just generally. Oh, I'm so sorry, Xenotime. I believe in you. I'm cheering for you. I give you my power. Okay. So, which anime, or is there a particular anime character you would like to see me do some sort of psychological talking about? Like a anime, a scene in a specific scene in an anime, a character in an anime, anything like that. And also the anime, if I haven't seen it, has to be 26 episodes or less so that I have time, I can watch it, but I've seen a lot, so that hopefully that won't be an issue. Just don't ask me about One Piece. I have not watched much One Piece at all. And if nobody has all of Bleach, please have mercy on me. I have watched, I stopped at the Soul Society arc. Azumanga Daioh. Oh my god. Is that streaming legally? It's probably been done, but Frieren is my fave. Ooh, Frieren's also a fun one. Let's see. Okay, Azumanga Daioh. Is that streaming? Because I haven't actually seen it. I've seen... I can find it on... Oh, I've always been wanting to watch To Your Eternity, but I haven't watched it yet because I know it's gonna emotionally destroy me. But it seems like a show that I would absolutely adore. Actually, Frieren and To Your Eternity would actually really nicely fit into that next scripted video I'm doing, but I didn't end up mentioning either. Which is a shame! Let's see. I can't find Azumanga Daioh streaming legally. It does appear to be on YouTube, but I would prefer to watch it in a legal way. So To Your Eternity or Frieren? Which one sounds better? How many episodes is To Your Eternity these days? I feel like there's been seasons when I wasn't paying attention. I've seen all of the Frieren anime, so that I have seen. Let's see. Oh yeah. No, I fully expect to start sobbing. Frieren made me cry. I know that. Let's see. Okay, 20 and then 60, 20 and 20. All right. Either of those would work. I'm gonna use this as an excuse to watch. Like, if there's not strong support for Frieren, then I think I will use this as an excuse to watch To Your Eternity. That way, the prophecy of Xenotime making me suffer can be fulfilled properly. And I can finally watch that freaking anime, and then I will create a psychology short episode on it and cry. Looking forward to it. And then the last one that we've hit, this is doing a full archival study with an APA write-up on the topic of chat's choice. So this isn't just pre-existing datasets. This is, you can make me go out onto the wider internet and find and create my own data set with things that I find out on the internet. You can force me to dig through social media posts and YouTube comments and whatever you want and put them in a spreadsheet forever and ever until I cry, and then analyze that data and do a full academic APA style write-up of the thing. This is your chance to do all of that. Oh, I love that I can wiggle my eyebrows like this. Okay. So what topics would we like to explore? Let's see. I guess this would be one where I could do Twitch bans. That might be a bit harder, but that is potentially a thing. Let's see. I wonder if I could do like a full write-up on something about Phi or something, or like Z or something. I can go to their channels and be like, here, we see this and this and this. Phi tends to do longer streams in the evening. That would be a little invasive. That feels a bit invasive. I gotta at least be nice about it, right? I wonder... I guess I could do an informal poll on VTheorem members' discords if they're willing to let me do that as well to collect some data, but that wouldn't be archival at that point. But if that's okay, I could do that. Was that... I'm trying to come up with an archival study. The thought, we've reached the archival study milestone where I do a full write-up and a full archival study, and I'm not sure what to do, and I haven't heard anything. And I thought it would be funny to do a study on something related to the other members of VTheorem. I'm just kind of rambling now to try and come up with ideas, and I don't know what that would be. Some things that I've thought of doing is looking, you know how there's that archival, meaning pre-existing data that's out in the world. It's not necessarily in a spreadsheet yet, but it's data that's out there on the internet that I could slam into a spreadsheet without like creating a survey and collecting information myself or running an experiment myself. At one point I was thinking there's this thing with anime called the 3-episode rule where like some people obey this 3-episode rule where they watch the first 3 episodes to see if it works. And I could try and do a study where I see if anime viewership stays constant for the first 3 episodes and then has a sudden drop off after the 3rd for a bunch of series. That's something that I could do. Nothing about psychology, so I haven't got any ideas. That's fair. I mean, it could just be like, what do people on the internet do? Let's see. The last time I did a weird thing on this channel, things that I've done on this channel that were kind of study adjacent, archival study adjacent was the, yeah, I can try. There was one where I looked to see if, rankings to see if the 3-episode rule actually works. That could be fun. Does the 3-episode rule work? How would I do that? Let's see. I'm trying to think of a way that I could test that. If the 3-episode rule... You know, actually, I could. Okay. 3-episode rule. Do the ratings of the first 3 episodes of an anime account or predict the overall rating of the anime? I could do that. Yeah, or if people watch the whole... Yeah. If they predict it, and then I'd have to control for the number of users watching each episode. Control for number of users watching each episode. Yeah, no, 5 wouldn't be normal enjoyment. Most people, if they're gonna rate it a 5, they'd drop it at that point. I wonder if I could find out the average anime rating on my anime list. But yeah, let's do that. Okay, I'll check if the 3 episode rules work. If the ratings of the first 3 episodes predict the overall rating of the show. So I'll have the first 3 episodes as one predictor, and then the ratings of every other episode as another predictor, and then the overall rating for the series, controlling for the number of people who were doing those ratings or who were still watching at that point, and then seeing if the first 3 episodes are a good predictor. I can compare the first episode to the first 3 episodes and see which one's a better predictor of the quality of the anime. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Okay. Compare first episode ratings for anime to composite of first 3 episodes of an anime, or like just the individual ratings of the first 3 episodes, or to ratings of first 3 episodes and see if adding episodes 2 and 3 ratings increases model fit. In other words, makes it a better prediction. Or improves prediction of overall rating. When the effect ruled the ratings as the people who dropped would not vote against later episodes so that you go on it, it would just, yeah, that would definitely be a limitation. There is definitely a problem with missing data here of people who drop a show. There is what I could do would be, I could keep it to people who only watch the whole show. So see if their ratings of the first 3 episodes. So like I could just remove anybody who drops the show, you know? I could do that. And then just say, how you like the first episode versus how you like the first 3 episodes, which is a better predictor of how you like the show overall for people who did end up finishing the show, which would have the limitation of excluding everybody who dropped the show, but it's better than nothing, where you just force them to watch the Unfortunately, I would have to get IRB approval for that, and the IRB does not let you make participants keep doing a thing if they don't want to. We learned our lesson from the Milgram study and the Stanford prison experiment. That's not a thing that we're allowed to do anymore. I'm going to strap you through this chair and make you watch the entirety of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Someday I would like to do a Psychome thing. Make IRB watch the anime. Yeah, I do want to do analysis of the portrayal of PTSD in Sword Art Online's third arc. I would like to do that, because the portrayal of PTSD for Sinon was actually decent. The portrayal of PTSD for Kirito was completely awful and entirely unnecessary. What the hell? I am mad about that to this day. Tell them they cannot really evaluate the ethics of your study without... That reminds me of that one time that there are people who are mad at the ratings board, and like the people who rate movies for how mature they are, and it's required that the people on the ratings board have to watch the entire movie before giving a thing. So they did like a freaking... They filmed paint drying for 20 hours, and they made the ratings board watch paint dry for 20 hours as like a form of protest or something. You know, I don't think I'm gonna finish this. Yeah, the paint drying film, exactly. I don't think I'm gonna finish this article on stream. I think I might have to... Unless we just skim through the rest of it. I think we might just skim through the rest of it. That sounded... Doesn't it? I love when spite results in silly things like that. Okay, let's skim this article, because I really do want to finish it today. I want to finish it. I don't like leaving things unfinished, so we're gonna freaking figure out what happened. We're at the results section. We're gonna do it. We look at the sentiment and significant changes over the period of consideration with hurricane... The lowest Vadar sentiment was observed during the hurricane. So people, here's their graph, and each one of these windows, these panels, is a different hurricane. I believe the shaded region is when the hurricane had made landfall. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That sounds right. I'll have to reread about the paint drying film. Anyway, I'm gonna finish this. So 0 would be sort of baseline, neutral sentiment, or no, it's z-scored. So 0 would be just sort of average, everyday sentiment. Whether that's positive or negative, it's hard to say, but that's just sort of like how people were talking in general. The shaded area is the hurricane 5 days before through 5 days after hurricane making landfall. Oh! And then there's after. So what we see here for all of these hurricanes, at least in the places, so Dorian, okay, Florence, Harvey, and Irma, these are all specifically in the area where the hurricanes were. In all these places, for hurricanes Florence, Harvey, and Irma, we see a sharp, and I'm assuming this line is the day that the hurricane made landfall, or like the moment the hurricane made landfall. We see a sharp drop in sentiment after the hurricane made landfall, which is people are feeling really bad after the hurricane made landfall, but they recover with like 5 days to a week after the hurricane makes landfall. After the hurricane has passed, their sentiment is approaching back to sort of baseline levels of emotion. So they start out like feeling kind of bad on average, but once the hurricane gets really close and hits, they feel really awful, and then they bounce back. We also see this same pattern with Dorian. This one's a bit weird. So Dorian, the Carolinas were where it really hit. And we're seeing that actually sentiment drop before this line where it hits, which is strange. I gotta check, what exactly does that line represent? In the case of Hurricane Dorian, only Carolina showed a large, they don't tell. Weird. Okay, but yeah, as a reminder, for Dorian was the only one that was really hit by the hurricane, and that's the only one that shows this drop in sentiment around when the hurricane is hitting. Florida was only grazed by Dorian, so they probably just got some heavy rainfall, and we don't see that drop in sentiment. And then Alabama thought they might get some Dorian because of that misinformation. But we aren't seeing much of a drop in Alabama during Dorian. There's a lot more error, it looks like, or a lot more instability here. And I'm not sure if that's about the misinformation, but it could also be the sample size. Have to look back at the sample size for Alabama for... Yeah, that had the smallest sample size, so it makes sense it looks a little more unstable than the other ones. Okay, we use Vader, a tool highly suitable for Twitter content, using a large lexicon, yada yada. So they've already explained this. We've literally already read this bit, even though for some... Oh, right. No, we already read that. Okay. To determine whether statistically significant changes in sentiment occurred at a given point in time relative to hurricane landfall, we plot Vader sentiment changes relative to the null model of randomly selected tweets. So the null model, this line 0, I believe, is the null model of just like, this is random noise. This is just a whole bunch of random tweets. We calculated the average sentiment of these random tweets that have no reason to have any particular thing going on. So that's their baseline. For Hurricane Florence, Harvey, and Ivo, we observed a large drop in sentiment that occurred within first 4 days of landfall. Within the first 4 days of these hurricanes hitting land, people felt really awful. Hurricane Dorian in the Carolinas, on the other hand, shows a large drop 1 day before landfall. So that line is landfall. That's interesting. I wonder why the Dorian drop in sentiment was before landfall and then sentiment went back more towards neutral when it hit. That's a very weird one. I wonder if they speculate on that. In each of these regions, Vader sentiment decreased significantly, while LWNR, that's the Luke version of this sentiment, increased significantly, which is the ratio of negative words to positive words. So both of these measures are showing more negative emotion being expressed in tweets immediately after, or in Dorian's case, immediately before the hurricane hit. Here we have the observed sentiment is the orange. This is the emotion that they actually saw. And the orange is the null model. This is what they'd expect to see if nothing in particular was going on, just usual day on Twitter. The blue is what they actually saw. So anywhere where the orange significantly diverges from the blue would be a sign that something specific and unusual is happening. So for Florence, Harvey, and Irma, we can all see that the null model, that's just average sentiment, is predicting basically nothing going on. But what they actually saw was people feeling worse after the hurricane hit. And we're seeing the same thing for Dorian, except for some reason the sentiment hits before the hurricane, not after. And then in Florida and Alabama for Dorian, where it didn't hit them directly or didn't hit them at all, we're not seeing a whole lot going on there at all. Wow, look at those teeny tiny baby error bars. The day before Dorian hit the Carolinas. Those are some teeny error bars. Yeah, I don't know either why those dips exist in the null model. That is very strange. And do you think, and why is the Carolina null model, maybe there's like other new, no, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, I'm not sure either. That's a good question. I wonder why. The bold line of the median observed data. Okay, so 25th, 50th, and 70th percentile bootstrap sentiments in both the original data and the null model, 95% confidence interval. So the shaded areas are a confidence interval. Were they tied to days in the week? Yeah, it is possible that those are Mondays. Let's see. If we figure out the day that Dorian made landfall, when did Hurricane Dorian make landfall? August 24th, 2019. So August 24th, 2019, day of week. So it hit on a Saturday. How's this lining up with your time slot? I am 40 minutes past when I thought my stream would end. We didn't have like strict time slots, but the next stream has started. So if you're interested in Neko's stream, I definitely recommend checking it out. Neko Lolita is playing Alice. The Madness Returns. I'm so sorry. I'm ashamed. I'm so sorry, Neko Lolita. To be fair, we actually set these time slots when we knew other people would be streaming. The fact that there isn't more overlap than there already is some kind of small miracle, because most of us were scheduling our streams blind. So I don't think Neko Lolita will hold this against me, maybe? I hope not. I told Z I planned for 2 hours, but might go longer than that, and... Anyway... Let's hide that. Let's pretend that doesn't exist. Okay, so this is a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The sentiment drops in the null model on a Friday. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Why is sentiment so bad on Fridays in the Carolinas, in the null model? Specifically the 2 Fridays following Dorian. But, like, that's the null model, so it wouldn't take Dorian into account. That's weird. Yeah, I have genuinely no idea why that's happening. Do they say? We observed significant increase in the Luke for Hurricane Irma only. So the Luke measurement only seems to have done anything significant on Irma, but Vader did it for everything. Yeah, I would have thought the opposite too. You'd think Friday would be a bit of a relief. Maybe... No, but it's the null model, so it's not tweets specifically about the hurricane. If it was specifically about the hurricane, I could see Friday being a distressing time, actually, because your work week is over. You can't just stay at work, but you don't really have anywhere to go back to if your house was severely hit by the hurricane. But that's the null model. That's not supposed to be... That's just random tweets, not necessarily tweets related in time to the hurricane. I don't understand. It could just be like a random fluke, you know, but like that's very strange. Very strange. Few significant changes in Florida and Alabama because, yeah, physical damage was limited. I don't think it even hit Alabama, if I remember right. We calculated the magnitude of sentiment change using daily observed z-score medians, so just to figure out how big. Complaining about the work week, and it's specifically in Carolina for some reason. Yeah, I genuinely do not know. It's possible that... When did they first talk about the null model and how they selected these tweets? It's possible... No, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, tell me more about the null model. This is what I get for scanning. Null model, the expected sentiment for random samples of tweets we observed, sentiment values, this null model to gauge. Wait. Dear God. Okay, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. That might have been Neko Lolita. Oh my gosh, though, was that? That's a lot. Is that? Sorry, I'm curious about that now. Who jump scared me? Who do I get to blame? I can find out. I have my ways. Sorry. I'm hiding the thing for a bit. Can I? I'll look later. I'll look later. I'll find out who I can blame for this later. Okay. But I think I should thank them. I think... Yes, thank you to the person who just donated and scared the hell out of me. I don't think that they're here, but thank you anyway. Each region... Okay. Yeah, where tell me more about the null model. Where is... How did you... To compare the observed sentiment against a random sample of tweets, we build a daily null model by only randomly sampling from tweets and at the same day. Oh, day minus 28 to day minus 1 and the same day of the week. Oh my gosh! We hit the goal! We hit the goal! Oh my gosh! That is so exciting! Oh my goodness, I'm clapping so hard. That's so wonderful. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I bet Z's gonna freak out when she learns. That's so awesome. Oh my gosh. Everybody, thank you all. You're all so incredible. That is amazing. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. That's so exciting. Oh. Oh boy. Okay. Yeah, we hit it. We hit it fine. We did it. Isn't that exciting? Oh my gosh. Oh, my poor cat. He needs to get fed. So I'm going to go through this as quick as I possibly can. Okay. And maybe we won't find out what happens. But it looks like these specific were Friday tweets, which is weird. So for some reason, people in the Carolinas are feeling really bad about Fridays. For some reason, just based on a random selection of tweets. Weird. Yeah, it is weird. Z was like, yeah, I don't know about milestones. Should I do milestones? And I was just like, maybe take a break. Okay, yeah. You know what? Let's take a break. I need to take a break and feed my cat because he deserves the entire world. I'm just gonna leave the picture of him up and I will be right back. Wait. No, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to... I return. I return. We shall return. All will be well. The cat has been fed. He is thriving. He is living his best life. He is so happy. You would not believe it. He is so happy. This is a very good man.
who is getting his chomps in. Yes, yes, yes. All right, Mr. Kitty, let's do this so that we can cuddle after the stream. Okay. Yes, indeed. Okay. Exponential fits of the Vader setup. So the first, every 12-hour grouped Vader data. But yeah, okay, so we have determined that these dips are because people in the Carolinas really were unhappy these 2 Fridays, and it is entirely possible that they were venting about their work weeks. But that is still a little strange. Anyway, weird. I wonder if they have any theories about that. Maybe they'll mention them in the discussion section. Significant increase in, so yeah, again, Luke wasn't working as well, or at least they didn't get the same results with Luke and Vader, but they've also sort of prefaced this with, we know that Luke probably isn't a good fit for this data, and the technique that they were using with Luke wasn't nearly as sensitive to things like context and stuff like that as the technique that they used with Vader, so Vader is probably a more reliable measurement, which... Okay, I'm willing to accept they only replicated their results with Luke on one of the 3 hurricanes that they looked at. I think that's okay, all things considered. All right. Social emotional, okay. 12-hour grouped Vader data. With this, we fit 2 exponential functions to each affected data. So yeah, okay. So this is looking at how things change. 0 is the day of landfall. The red is Dorian, I believe, and then the orange, blue, and green are the other 3. And this is just the general how much sentiment changed. Here we can see that for the other 3 hurricanes, sentiment went to its lowest point 1 to 3 days after it hit, but then it went back to normal. So that's the resilience they're talking about. They're saying, yeah, people did feel bad that this happened, but they were able to emotionally recover from this actually pretty quickly, like within a week or 2. It's interesting to me, though, Dorian, again, their sentiment went down a day before it hit, which is strange and not consistent with the other ones, and it went down a lot more, which is also strange. Then again, they also had less data from Dorian by a factor of like 10 than all of the other hurricanes. Actually, by a factor of like 100, almost. You know, like they have a lot less data for Dorian than they do for the other, for Irma, Harvey, and Florence. So it could just be like a matter of sampling error. There's something weird about the data that they did manage to get for Dorian, and that's why it doesn't match the others, because it has a lot less data behind it. But it's hard to say. Like, this is just speculation. The Carolinas were the only region to have the minimum sentiment 1 day before the hurricane made landfall, as opposed to other regions which had after, which again is weird. And Carolina had the largest decrease in sentiment, almost double the other affected regions. And we should also, of course, note that this isn't just the other affected regions, this is also a matter of the other affected years. Dorian took place, I think, 2 years after the other 2. So it could be there's some other contextual change in like American politics or something like that that happened in that intervening time that made it so this hurricane had a different impact, or like not even just politics, but like just general world news. So let's see. Krauss et al. So this is another thing that they've cited, said it took 16 months for an individual to mentally recuperate from natural disasters. So for an individual human being, it takes over a year for emotions to get back to normal. The quick resilience that they're seeing here could just be just like the initial feeling of relief. It's just the initial boost of, okay, the big problem's over now. The longer resilience is more logical and analytic thinking. So it could be that this resilience they're seeing so quickly after isn't necessarily a long-lasting resilience. It's just the relief that the worst of it is over, but not necessarily a full emotional recovery. And also this, of course, again, is social media posts. And this is all done on Americans, and there have been a lot of studies showing that Americans and other Western cultures tend to make more positive posts than negative posts. They share more negative posts, but they make more positive posts. So it's hard to say whether this, like, it definitely probably does reflect actual emotions, but it might be an exaggerated form of the emotions, you know? And Okay. The pattern for other affected regions was similar, except with a much smaller impact. We don't show fits for Florida and Alabama as there's no significant sentiment change near the hurricane event, which makes sense because the hurricane didn't actually hit them. Those are the two places that they looked at where it didn't directly hit. Finally, we looked at all the words with sentiment loadings. So these are words that express strong emotion that were used in tweets during, before, and after the hurricanes. I don't really get using social media where you don't have a specific audience or others to have a conversation with. Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I like screaming into the void on social media. You know, sometimes it's like getting something off your chest. To an extent, but it doesn't have the same effect if you aren't expecting at least some kind of audience. You know, like talking completely into the void where you think there's no chance that no one can see what you're saying is a bit weird. At the end of the day, yeah, I think you're always anticipating some kind of audience, even if sometimes you might be more concerned about their impression versus less concerned. You're still aware that there is potentially an audience there. So you're always, to some extent, influenced probably by what you think the audience, how you think the audience might perceive what you're saying. That's a whole other thing. That's a very interesting aspect of things. Some people treat online posting as journaling. Yeah. But it has the interesting interactive, like, it's a bit, yeah. Like, it is an interesting, I to some extent, on my private accounts, treat it a bit like journaling, but I also, when I'm making those posts, I am highly aware that other people are going to see them. Even if it's a very small set of other people, I'm aware. Yeah. 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 Oh, sorry. I think I got back up to 28 words per minute. Hell yeah, we're catching up. Let's see if we can break 30. Okay. Kernel rank correlation is a measure of correlation between two orderings. A high correlation between orderings of Vader terms from two indicates similar ranking of Vader terms. So the type of language before and after. All calculated correlations during involving indicating the hurricane had an effect on the usage of Vader terms in tweets. Oh. Okay. Top 5 valence words in tweets with the largest z-score of normalized TF-IDF. Before and after the hurricane, the most important words were the same in each region. So, sig figure 1. Show me the figure. I don't want to download the figure. S1 fig 1. Show me the figure. Why do you hate me? It doesn't love me. Okay, here we go. So these are the most, basically the most important sort of representative words of the sentiment in the tweets before, during, and after. So these are what? Over here are convex and concave. So I'm guessing that this is showing these ones are very common before, right? Yeah. Academic word cloud. Yeah. The funny thing is the academic word cloud is actually a word cloud, but this is just a gross way of showing it. So yeah, you can see a lot of words that were, I think the ones that are low are like having these things in here were actually not terribly characteristic of tweets. These ones in the middle were very characteristic of tweets. So a lot of the tweets during it were talking about warning people. They were trying to give recommendations. Chance, you know, warnings, warnings, very big thing. And these tweets were not as characteristic. So the lighter tweets are like, these were not terribly characteristic of before and after, but they were quite characteristic during. And the same thing here. These were very characteristic before and after, but their usage went down during the hurricane. Oh, interesting. All right. Had the exact same word list before and after. On the other hand, warning became the most important word during. So warning wasn't as important before and after. It's funny that it wasn't important before. It's like there's a hurricane coming and you're not as it, but like once it's already there, now you're warning. That's a bit interesting to me. Has the same group of words in all of the time periods. The decrease in TF-IDF scores for the top 5 words during the hurricane can be attributed to an increase in use of the word warning from the convex cluster. So basically the word warning was eclipsing basically everything else. A similar pattern happened with Hurricane Harvey and Irma. Conclave clusters had the exact same order of importance across all time periods, and the decrease in importance during the hurricane could be attributed to an increase in the frequency of words like help and safe. So basically, the language stayed almost exactly the same. The language use stayed pretty similar across the whole time, except during the hurricane, words like help and safe really shot up in use, as opposed to before and after. In Hurricane Dorian, Florida and Georgia showed very little difference in the top 5 most important words. In the Carolinas, so the places where there wasn't a direct hurricane hit weren't really affected. Their language didn't change much, but in the Carolinas, where there was a direct hit, usage of warning and safe went up a lot when the hurricane was actively there, and people stopped saying words like great, love, and happy nearly as much while they were actively in the hurricane, which, yeah, I probably wouldn't be using the word happy or great too much if I was actively in the middle of a natural disaster. We're almost there, everybody. We've hit the discussion. Using geolocated social media, we show a statistically significant decrease in community sentiment during the Fork hurricane. So basically they're saying, our take home, people were unhappy when their community got hit by a hurricane, which, wow. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. We also showed significant emotional resilience about 1 to 2 weeks after landfall, bringing sentiment back to baseline. So they were talking really negatively during the hurricane, but within 1 to 2 weeks of the hurricane passing, they were back at the same level they'd been before the hurricane. And they're classifying that as resilience. So I think it's important to note that, like they said in the results section, this could just be a temporary form of resilience. It's not like a full recovery. It might just be an expression of relief. And there's probably a lot of work to do. I'm kind of disappointed, like, that they didn't take into account, when they said they were taking into account communities, I thought they'd be, like, talking about how hard, like, individual counties or something like that were hit, or, like, how counties' average income level and stuff might have affected these types of things, or, you know, like, home insurance per capita, or like renter versus homeowner per capita in a specific county might be related to the sentiment they were expressing. But it looks like their definition of community was literally, which state were you in? Or, you know, like the boxes are much bigger than I would normally think of as a community, which is kind of a bummer. But I mean, this is still cool. It's still neat. Our data sources and analysis has many advantages over traditional surveys. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty neat. Because these are what people are saying. But yeah, surveys can be impractical for live monitoring public sentiment during a crisis situation. Yeah, if somebody's in the middle of a hurricane and somebody comes out with them with a clipboard like, hey, want to respond to a survey? They're like, I'm trying to evacuate. Please do not do that. Get out of my way. Not exactly an ideal place to be collecting data, for sure. They can furthermore be biased by factors related to social expectations and social conformity bias. I would also argue that's a concern with social media, though, because surveys are often anonymous surveys where, like, maybe the person filling it out thinks 1 or 2 other people are going to see it. But here, it's a bit different. Like, with tweets, you're putting them out into the world, and the Twitter API only collects public tweets. So these were tweets from public accounts, not locked accounts. So I do think social desirability and social expectations were still very much a thing here, perhaps even more than with an anonymous survey. So I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with this. I feel like there's more social pressure, not less, with social media posts as opposed to an anonymous survey, but whatever. High temporal resolution, though, that's right. They are getting all of these at the exact time when the event of interest happens. So they're getting what people are saying in the moment, which is pretty impressive. There are some limitations to the approach. First, we used aggregate Twitter sentiment of a proxy involving community sentiment because tweets tend to be unprompted and in real time. So yeah, this is only one social media site. They're not actually directly measuring sentiment, and like they're only getting Twitter users specifically. Twitter population isn't representative but self-selected. Yeah, it's a biased sample. I mean, basically any sample is going to be biased to some degree, but yeah, this is specifically Twitter users and a subsample that is active on that thing. So not only are these Twitter users, they are active Twitter users who are actively using their media before, during, and after a natural disaster. Complicating efforts to generalize. Fair. Second, hurricanes and other extreme weather can lead to power outages, sometimes lasting for days. Social media and general internet usage in some users can decrease during those times. So basically, the people who are hit hardest may not be the ones tweeting, because the people who are hit hardest did not have the power or internet connection to tweet, you know? So this might not necessarily be getting the people who were most heavily affected by the hurricane. We believe the internet and social media usage during natural disasters is more nuanced when taking into account the digital divide. As mentioned before, Twitter population is not representative. It's more younger adults than older adults. Ooh, the Horseheath Canyon fire in September 2012. Younger people had disproportionately more fire-related Twitter posts. So yeah, it's probably mostly younger people who are tweeting about this natural disaster. So again, it's a biased sample. It's not just biased to just Twitter users. It's also just, you got to consider that these Twitter users are probably younger people. So these findings may not generalize to older people. Shao et al. Showed that during Hurricane Sandy, the number of related tweets increased in mildly damaged places and decreased in more effective areas. Huh. The number of related tweets to the hurricane presumably increased in mildly damaged places and No, they mentioned this in the introduction, the fact that like people who were hit hardest are not really talking about it. People who were like hit a bit, like not the hardest, but also not, they still got hit, were talking about it the most, and then it fell off again the further you got from the thing. They also found that young male or more educated populations were more likely to have more tweets. Fair. We're looking at income disparity in tweet frequency. They found so they're citing other things that looked at things like income. Reversed U-shaped pattern that hypothesized that an increase in wealth can indicate better access to technology and information, but after a certain point, the extremely wealthy are less motivated to use social media, potentially because they are less affected by the natural disaster, probably because they have the money to deal with the consequences. So basically, the people who were tweeting most about it are people who are kind of in the middle. If you're extremely wealthy, you're not talking about it. And then if you don't have a lot of money at all, you're not talking about it either. Maybe because you have less internet access, maybe because you were hit harder. You've got a lot more immediate needs you need to take care of. Wang et al. Found similar results showing that communities with higher social vulnerabilities were underrepresented even before Hurricane Sandy made landfall, indicating less social media engagement and potential to be left behind during disaster recovery due to low visibility. So yeah, these communities with more social vulnerabilities, so say things like lower income, higher populations of minoritized people and things like that, were already not on social media as much before the hurricane. So the people who probably had the roughest time financially recovering from this and took the biggest financial hit because, and like, you know, were in these areas that probably weren't getting as much assistance, are also much less likely to be in the data sets that they have. So this is a limitation. And we specifically focused on major hurricanes that made landfall in different locations in the US. Our results may not generalize to other natural disasters such as floods or forest fires, which is what we're raising money for today. Well, not a forest fire, but, you know, a fire that we're raising money for today. Relief for the fire, specifically. Which may have specific effects on public sentiment and community resilience. Makes sense. It could be that some natural disasters have different effects than others. These limitations suggest future research. Look at Facebook, Reddit, and Weibo so it does not just Twitter. We can study this on other platforms. You can do a bunch of stuff. You can look at Google searches. You can look at surveys. So you can attack this from multiple different angles, not just social media posts, but surveys and like search volume and things like that. And see if those different methodologies give you the same results. Oh my God. Okay, almost done. Natural disasters occur throughout the world where many of Twitter's users reside. Multilingual sentiment analysis tool could therefore be useful. So yeah, they only analyze this in English. It would be nice to get this in other languages as well. This is particularly relevant since countries can differ significantly with respect to demographics, population density, government intervention, and strategies and infrastructure. And also, we know that the way that people express emotions on social media tends to differ depending on the culture that they're embedded in. So I imagine that would also be an interesting moderating variable here as well. It could be that if we looked at like this type of event in other parts of the world, we might see a very different pattern, and that would be pretty cool. The differences in accuracy of forecasting between these natural disasters could lead to interesting insights of how uncertainty affects the public's emotional response to particular disaster as well as their collective resilience. All right. What's this? there we go. We did it. We made it through the paper. I'm so tired. This is the longest stream I've ever done, I think. Wow. Yeah, dab. Oh my gosh, well, thank you all so much for joining me. This was a wonderful, wonderful time. I had a lot of fun reading this paper. 32 words per minute overall. Not bad. We broke the 30 mark, and that's what I really cared about. Let's see if I can figure out how to raid our lovely person, our next streamer, who's live on it. Copy the stream URL and post it in your chat. Okay, I guess that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna... But yeah, thank you all so much for coming. I will make sure to note down the incentives. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm glad that we, like, I think it would have been wonderful. The average reading aloud was 180 words. Yes, this was a very skewed, uneven pace. Yeah, so thank you for not making, like, of course, raising more money is always a good thing, especially, like, for this sort of charity type of thing, but I'm also glad I don't need to explain a statistic that I might not necessarily be familiar with on stream. I'm a little relieved about that, but I'm looking forward to the rest of these things. Just to recap, I believe I'm going to draw the astrologer with a twirly mustache holding a can of evil tomato soup. I'm going to read a paper on moral licensing. I'm going to analyze a data set of VTuber live chats and bans and things like that. I'm going to do a psychology short on something from To Your Eternity, a character, a scene, something like that. And then I'm going to do a full APA paper and analysis on whether the 3-episode rule is an effective way of assessing the quality of an anime, or if 1 episode is sufficient. Yeah! Whew. Okay, let me find Neko Lolita's stream link, and then I will post that in chat. I will find it. Where be? Neko Lolita. I will find you. Neko Lolita. And then I'm just gonna lay on the floor. Do I have a Discord server? I do not have a Discord server, unfortunately. Maybe one day I will. Are you ready? Are you ready? All right, Neko Lolita is over here streaming Alice the Madness Returns. There we go. So I would be very happy if you popped over to their stream. Thank you all so much for dropping by, and thank you all so much for all of your support for this cause. It is absolutely wonderful, everybody. Thank you so much. Take care, and I'm looking forward to see you again. Bye!